This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Southampton Select Board.
No name badges?
Do you have some people? Calling to order the meeting of the Southampton Select Board for April 11th at a little bit after 6 o'clock. You got an echo on here? Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Could we please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance? Trying to get organized here. Okay. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Good. Thanks, everybody. Okay. Hopefully we don't have too much feedback. We have somebody coming in. Okay. That's Andrew, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So before we get there, we have a couple more things, and I hope we don't have an echo all night long.
Like being at the baseball stadium.
Who's talking?
It's the echo
Okay.
for me. Okay. We'll do the best we can here. Maybe he needs to be on mute.
Yeah, I think that's it. Just too many audios.
Okay. Well, okay, we'll just keep going here. We've got a busy schedule. Okay, let's go ahead. Any open time for the public? We've got some people here tonight, so please, yeah. Tammy.
Tammy Lunas, 298 College Highway. If my questions are directed more towards the presentations, will there be a open public time for questions after that?
Not planning on that for tonight, I don't think.
Okay.
We've got a long budget session to go, so we haven't heard them yet, but I'm not sure how the presentations are going to go.
All right. My question is, Ad hoc Senior Center Feasibility Committee. What is the meaning of a feasibility study? Feasibility study is a preliminary exploration of a proposed project or undertaking to determine its merits and valuability. A feasibility study aims to provide an independent assessment that examines all aspects of a proposed project, including technical, economic, financial, legal, and environmental considerations. Is a building this size truly needed? Yes. All these rooms are wanted and asked for in the surveys, but are they all needed? Has any cost analysis been done for the utility use, for the size of this building? And what happens when you don't get enough grants to operate this building? Who is left paying to have an empty building surrounded by asphalt? And I know you don't have answers,
No, I'm
but
hoping to hear things in the presentation tonight, and I think we'll have to take it from there. And again, this feasibility study, it's not the building, construction part of it. It's the feasibility of and what they were charged to do. So we'll hear their presentation shortly. Okay? Yeah, next.
Hi, I'm Lisa York, 81 Maple Street. I just wanted to discuss a couple of things that came up last meeting. And I was corrected that you're not commissioners, but I believe online you're executives, which are similar.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
the current fire chief gave you a notice of retirement the end of October. You said
We had the formal notice in January, I believe.
October, okay. And you said that you started talking about it mid-February. And have you started advertising for the position, or do you think you'll be filling?
That's part of the agenda, even tonight, under the new business, Fire Chief Search Committee is on the agenda for tonight.
So less than 90 days out, and now you're
No, we've been talking about it. So
What's
John?
on the agenda is a status update.
Yeah.
So
It's a
there'll be a
status
detailed
update for
report
it.
on
Yeah.
what we've done, where we're at, and where we're going.
Great. And what channel can you watch the meeting on?
191.
191?
And it's also streaming, should be streaming live on YouTube as well.
Okay.
For those that don't have 191.
Thank you. And just, it's interesting because after the couple I guess people are watching and they stop me, either they call me on my home number or they stop me and just, they've said how they feel, it was interesting that they feel that I'm not really welcome here. And I thought that was, multiple people have said that to me. So I'm not, I am just trying to have this burnt house change because there's been other houses burnt down. Pomeroy Meadow, 100 Pomeroy Meadow burnt down to the ground, and there's a hydrant there. So, and there's other, so it's not just no water, which are.
And I think at the last meeting, and it's also on the agenda for tonight, is talking about a community forum. So
Do you have a date yet?
We're going to talk about that tonight because we decided it was too early to do it right now with everything jam-packed in April, with town, we're doing the budget and everything else. So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about that. It's on the agenda for tonight to
Okay.
talk about that. But we've made progress on that as well. So that's going to be a broader community forum
Right.
that will discuss a variety of issues related to.
And will you set the date tonight or just?
We'll try to, yeah,
Okay.
if we
Chris,
can. But we'll see.
Thanks.
Lisa, I think one of our difficulties is the only time we can actually talk together is the
Yeah,
Tuesday
it's
night
when we're
meetings.
here.
Like, once we break up, we're not allowed to
Yeah.
Right.
discuss dates and things of that
Right.
nature. So I know it seems slow.
Yeah,
But-
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so,
Thanks.
but you are welcome.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. Okay, that was, anybody else for open time for the public? All right, thank you. All right. So we have a couple of things on our agenda tonight, and I would just like to, given that one is maybe a short item, I'm going to just ask whether the board would be willing to take the report to the select board, the open space Kestrel Land Trust issue first before the presentations. That way, our guests don't have to wait for the whole presentation of actually the Senior Center and the Public Safety Building Committee. Would the board be willing to take that out of order and do the open space Kestrel Land Trust discussion right now?
I'm fine with it if you think it's only a couple minutes.
Yeah, well, hopefully. A few minutes. I think they're looking for a letter of support, from what I'm understanding, yeah.
It's a long, I just don't want everybody else to be waiting on.
No, it's not going to be a long meeting, I don't think, a long presentation, right? Okay, if everybody's okay, so let's do that, okay? Open Space Kestrel Land Trust, this is from the report to Select Board. Yeah, please, Mark.
Hello, everyone. Mark Walmsley, Kestrel Land Trust. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm pleased to report that the Mountain Waters project that my colleague Bridget had presented several weeks ago in concept is no longer a concept. It has come together with what I think is both a feasible and very compelling project, and I'm here tonight to ask the town of Southampton to offer a letter of support for our landscape partnership grant application, as well as being one of our primary project partners. So just in short, I know Bridget mentioned that the landscape partnership grant focuses on protecting landscape scale projects, basically tries to keep intact large blocks of wild and working landscapes, farms and forests. And you have a really compelling area, right, basically in Southampton, in the northwest corner, around Pomeroy Mountain and the Ty-Carmody Reservoir. It's not only a critical link, but it, in and of itself is a quite highly valued block of forest landscape. So we have pulled together a number of landowners, 10 landowners, in a project that will total, we hope, just over 1,000 acres. 1,027 acres of both forest and farmland, a combination of fee acquisitions and conservation restrictions. And I think one of the things that makes it compelling is, we had kind of hopes at the outset, but we have a few landmark properties in there. If everything goes forward as we hope, the project will end up protecting most of the top of Pomeroy Mountain. as well as supporting the APR on the Glendale Ridge Winery. So 2 well-known, well-loved landscapes in town will be pretty much the centerpiece of this application if it goes forward. So again, we have a number of project partners. The project itself spans 3 towns, but also involves potentially 2 state agencies as well as 2 land trusts. But most of the land is in Southampton. So yeah, I'm trying to think what else to add. So yes, everything seems to be coming together. The grant application is due the beginning of next week. We are hoping to have it all together, including support letters from all the project partners by the end of this week. Electronic copies are fine. And yeah, so we're hoping to send it in and hoping the state finds it as compelling as we do. And hoping that if we get the grant, the select board will commit to kind of moving forward, in concept and see if we can pull it all together. There's a lot of work, a lot of moving pieces still. Again, there's 10 different parcels, a number of different landowners. We have conceptual agreements with all of them. General prices, general ideas of the ultimate disposition of the land, but there's a lot still to work out. But luckily, the grant allows for that. It realizes these are big, complicated projects, and they are 2-year projects. Basically, it can go through 2025. So the state, again, pays half of the total project costs, and we are hoping that the rest of the project partners can come up with the other half. And Kestrel and a private partner are willing to contribute a significant amount to that, but we're hoping Southampton CPA would also be a major contributor.
And you'd come to us later on for that kind of more specific request, I would assume.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's my understanding. So again, the grant application asks for what projects are expected to close in fiscal year 2024 and fiscal year 2025. For anything that needs to close in fiscal year 2024, that would be before July 1st of next year for the state's schedule. We would need a town meeting vote by the end of this year. So basically by December of this year, committing to it and committing the CPA funding to it. And I believe that that vote could commit the funding over the next 2 years. I don't know if it depends on how the town wants to do it, whether to have a second vote or whether to, just say this much in this fiscal year, this much in this fiscal year.
Okay. All right. And you've already been to Conservation Commission?
We have the Conservation Commission support and the Open Space Committee support. We're very thrilled to be working with them again.
Okay. So what you need from us tonight is an agreement to do a letter of support.
Correct. And I provided a draft, which you can feel free to edit, certainly, make any corrections. But I'm also absolutely happy to take any questions from you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments?
So I have a question on the draft letter. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Could you explain to me in the second paragraph where I just don't understand the terminology? Specifically, Conservation Commission has agreed to pursue fee ownership of the 19 acres. What does that mean?
Fee ownership?
Fee ownership is ownership outright, as opposed to just holding a conservation restriction on the land. So the Conservation Commission, on behalf of the town, would be owning and stewarding the land. The town would own it, stewarded by the Conservation Commission.
Okay. Thanks.
Sorry for the jargon, the real estate jargon.
Okay. Yeah, Rena?
Fee interest. I support this wholeheartedly, but the support letter said master plan, and actually it was updated from the date that's in the support letter. It should be January 2021. And unfortunately, that was the case in the Conservation Commission letter, too. It still says a previous master plan date.
Yep. Good point. Good catch.
We can make that correction.
A couple of edits that we'll need to do in here. Yep, for sure. Okay, well, we will, shall we take a vote then to support this notion and draft, allow me to edit this letter and put it out to Kestrel?
Sure. I'll make a motion to support the, put a support letter towards the
Grant application?
Yeah, grant application to acquire the Mountain Waters?
Mountain Waters Landscape Partnership Project.
Yeah, Landscape Partnership Grant. Right, application. Okay, so I have a motion from Rini.
I'll second.
Second by Francine. Any further discussion?
Under discussion. So moving forward with this just moves the process along. Ultimately, it's got to come back for ratification by the entire citizenship, right?
Absolutely. Yes, it has to go to a town. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. And just tying in that, when would you know anything about the grant? When do you, if you put in the application, how soon do they let you know?
They give themselves 120 days. My guess is will probably be around a month or so before we hear. They're going to want to come out for a property visit and see the site, the grant, project managers. So, yep.
All right. So, John, sorry, did I interrupt you? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to confirm, whatever we do tonight, ultimately, it's got to come back for the voters before it happens, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. This is just a letter of support to go with the grant application.
Yep.
Okay. All right. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great meeting.
Approved. Thank you. All right. And just a note for our note taker, Joy is absent tonight, so we are 4 in person. Okay, let us move on to then the presentation. So we have a joint meeting with the Senior Center Feasibility Committee and the Public Safety Building Committee. Would you all like to call your meetings to order? Senior Center?
Yes, hi. Janet Kane, co-chair of the Ad Hoc Senior Center Building Feasibility Committee, and I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Okay.
Mark Darnold, the chairperson for the Public Safety Building Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Okay, very good. Okay, so our first presentation up, I think, is the Senior Center Feasibility Committee.
Can I just ask, is Andrew muted?
He is, he can unmute, though.
Okay, so if you wanted to make a comment, you can just raise your hand and unmute, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think that gets rid of our echo.
Yes.
Okay. Yep, very good. Thanks. And so, co-chair, yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So good evening. I'm Janet Kane, 83 Glendale Road, and I'm one of the co-chairs along with Andrew LaFosse of the Ad Hoc Senior Center Building Feasibility Committee. The first meeting of this committee was almost 1 year ago to the day, April 14th. We have met 31 times over the last year. It's been a pleasure to work with this committee and with the ABCUS team of David Eisen and Devlin Kenny. Many thanks to all of you for the hard work and dedication. We've always been open to a healthy and productive exchange of ideas over the last 12 months and the 6 months we've worked with ABCUS, architects and planners. I'm proud of the final study we're sharing with you this evening. We look forward to moving to the next stage of our process and making a new senior center a reality. Our next step after this evening's presentation will be to forward the study to the attorney and the executor for the estate of David Parsons, as we believe we have followed Mr. Parsons' wishes as he has stated in his will. Now let me introduce to the Select Board David Eisen, principal and partner of ABCUS Architect and Planners.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Did we lose our connection? Sorry.
No, it's just gone.
Oh,
There, so that went back on.
So, yeah, come on, shrink that. Okay, now I gotta find the VIAP.
The old days they had words up on easels.
exactly.
This will be much easier, I hope, once it's working.
Yeah. We always have a little glitch with that thing for some reason. Not always, but often.
Can I ask you a question while I'm just waiting? Was this something right here that, did you reach out or did Ed reach out? No? Okay.
There you go.
Okay, thank you, and let me open, okay, there we go. Thank you to the Select Board for the opportunity to be here tonight, and thank you to the committee for all your hard work. This has been a great group of people to work with, and the fruits of our labor. As I said, I'm David Eisen, principal of ABCUS Architects and Planners. I'm going to run you through the report. A lot of it, click, really quickly. Thank you to David Parsons, who made this presentation you see tonight possible, and thank you. We hope for ongoing contributions for the effort to get a new Council on Aging building on an appropriate piece of property. This is the committee. The Council on Aging was incredibly helpful. Most of the work is by Abacus, but we had a civil engineer, site development engineers, and cost estimators working with us for appropriate parts of the report. Table of contents. So I want to zoom in on this. I'm not going to read all those bullet points. I do want to focus on the main recommendations. We put the important stuff on the first page here in case anyone doesn't want to read through the rest of the report. Bullet point 1, a lot of hard work finding property, defining a program. So there's a pretty clear sense of where and what the Council on Aging Senior Center should be. 8 possible sites. That's bullet point number 2. Bullet point number 3, recommending the purchase of 89 Clark Street. It does seem like a very appropriate property for a new Council on Aging. The next bullet point, there's still some due diligence to be done, but enough has taken place that we don't think there are going to be any surprises on the property. And then the town needs to look at funding if this is going to move forward beyond where we're at, which is recommendation and possibly the purchase of land. We were hired in response to a request for proposal that followed state guidelines based on our experience in similar feasibility studies and work with Council on Aging and senior centers throughout the Commonwealth. We looked at the existing building. And I do, these are the only bullet points I'm actually going to read, but I think they're really important. This is what is expected of senior centers throughout the Commonwealth, and many of them can deliver on this. Social connections to other seniors in the area, services that help seniors stay well and independent, healthy meals in a community setting, recreational and artistic opportunities, exercise and fitness activities, emergency response during challenging times, access to transportation, counseling on finances and physical and mental health, drop-in center to get seniors out of the house and reduce social isolation, and participation in games, conversations, and other kinds of unscheduled activities. So despite the best efforts of the senior center staff, many of these things are difficult given the current facility. There isn't really a workable kitchen. There's no privacy. There's one big room. Multiple activities can't take place. There's a real need for a senior center building. So we started out in parallel with looking at what it would take to, what a new senior center should be, possible sites for locating it. And here you can see the 8 sites. That's a 2-mile diameter circle. Most of them are close to the center of town. And here there's a little more information about each one. 3 were eliminated pretty early on. 16 East Street, because it wasn't accessible from public ways. 8 East Street, town-owned piece of land, really too small to build a senior center. The existing building, the historic building, wasn't appropriate, and even if it was, there'd be no room for parking and outside activities. 17 College, a little bit too far away, an existing building that wasn't appropriate for adaptive reuse as a senior center. And there are 4 sites we looked at intensively. 89 Clark, which is recommended. 79 Clark, which was a close second, but not as the proportions were not as fortuitous. 0 College, 41.5 acres, private landowner, slated for development, a lot of uncertainties. And 210 College, which is where we are at now, and you can see circled in yellow the current senior center. And we took a look at these sites. We looked at them on maps. We looked at on surveys and in the field. Here upper right, that's where we are right now with the fire station in the background. So programming, digging into deeper into what a new senior center should be in terms of spaces and services. So we had a community meeting for the senior center community, and we talked about a variety of different options. We suggested what's standard at senior centers, and they were evaluated. You can see the numbers on the left. Cafe, lounge, social space came in first, but a lot of different opinions on what's needed and wanted. We did a series of exercises to get a better idea of how people felt about the senior center, how often they would come, how they would use it, and then we did an online survey, and there's a fairly big appendix, and we list all the questions and all the answers, but one that leaped out: do you feel the current senior center is sufficient to meet the needs of the Southampton seniors? 41 people said yes, 255 people said no. So again, we dug in deeper into programming options. Here are the kinds of spaces. This is what they look like and feel like. And we developed two programs, a larger one and a smaller one, and you can see the list of different spaces and the square footages. And on the one hand, these are very typical of most senior centers, and at the same time, these are responsive to the needs of this particular community. 15,800 square feet. This is kind of gross square footage outside of the building. Public construction is very expensive, so we looked at a smaller version. The same thing, only smaller. Smaller rooms, fewer multipurpose rooms at 12,300 square feet, and felt that this would meet the long-term needs of the Southampton community, given the fact that the senior population is growing, as it is in many communities in Massachusetts, and that this balanced big enough for the future while keeping not having excessive costs. And the current facility is a bit over 2,000 square feet, so this is a significant improvement. And of course, numbers on paper, words on paper aren't what really matter. What really matters is architecture, is spaces, is places for people. So you can see spatial layout here for the larger version, and you could say this is a town center concept. You have a series of activity spaces, offices, arts and crafts on the upper right, multi-purpose rooms on the bottom, a large great room for dining, for banquets. It could be divided, a kitchen in the lower left, surrounding open spatial space. So there are no corridors in this building. There are circulation space can be used in multiple ways over the course of the hour, a day, a week, a year. This provides flexibility. There isn't a square foot of wasted space. So some of you may remember schools, 10-foot corridor lined with classrooms. I'm on the MSBA designer selection panel. Nobody designs schools that way anymore. They're more like this, with the idea there are breakout spaces, there are social spaces. That's what's really needed, and it's no different when you're older than it is when you're younger. And then here's a smaller version, accomplished same ideas. These are conceptual plans. These are not designed for a particular site, but seem to work effectively. And here, beginning to look at this in 3 dimensions and axonometric above. So then the next step, here are site options, here are conceptual plans, bringing the two together. So the plans on every site are different. It's not the same plan cookie cuttered. It's pushed and pulled in response to the site. But here it is on 89 Clark Street with parking in back, a drop-off, access to the kitchen. These are hardly final plans, but they meet programmatic needs. They're adapted to the site. They suggest whether a site is appropriate for the kind of senior center the town needs. 79 Clark, it's a bit more of a squeeze, smaller site. Oh, and by the way, on all of these, you can see the septic field outlined in white at the bottom. 89 Clark, it's smaller, because the soil is a little bit better than on 79 Clark. Zero College, we looked at 3 possible sites. Very small, one that's too small, one that's a bit bigger, one that's bigger still. This is within the context of some early plans for development by the owner on Zero College. But it seems too far from town and too many uncertainties. So this, significant questions about how meaningful these exercises were. And 210 College, really interesting site. Town center, fire station. So there's the college is on the lower right. You can see that L-shaped building at the bottom. That's where we are right now. If you expanded the parking, if you tore down the fire station, if you had a 2-story Council on Aging building, could you make this site work? And there are wetlands, there's topography, there's ledge, there are all kinds of issues. So there was really the need. You can see everything, all of those wavy lines on the upper right. That's the wetlands. That's the buffer zone. Conceivably, you could make a senior center work on this site. We did site engineering assessment. I'm not going to go through this in detail, and in the appendix is a lot more information. All of the sites could work for septic. 210 College is definitely the worst. Zero College is the best, and 79 and 89 Clark are adequate. They're good enough for what would be required for a senior center. So lots of pros and cons, lots of considerations. How do you make a decision? That's the committee, along with the consultants, make a recommendation to the town and to the select board on the direction to go. So this is called a site evaluation or decision-making matrix. On the left, and I don't know if this can be focused better, but there are a series of different criteria. That's the vertical on the left. Across the right are the different site options. Red means kind of a problem. Green means, yeah, this is pretty good in terms of that criteria. Yellow is so-so. We attach numbers to them. And 89 Clark was definitely came in the best with a score of 28. And a lot of this is subjective, but the idea is to have kind of accountability. How did you make these recommendations? What were the factors? Here they are. Public process. I don't think anyone in town can say, whoa, you didn't ask me. We had the meeting with the seniors, and everybody was invited. We had a whole community meeting, and these were very well advertised. We really paid attention to what was said because we know who pays for senior centers, at least part of the cost, and it's the voters. So we wanted to hear what they had to say. A lot of input, changes were made, but a lot of support. And then, next, we haven't delved into this because this is a feasibility study. Forms and spaces. I mean, that's what really matters here. So these are from other projects, but a building's exterior can talk about life and vitality and being welcoming. And there's always an issue if senior centers want to attract younger people as well as older people. You're competing with the health clubs. So how do you make this place look like a place people want to come to? And once you walk in, how do you use natural light and generous spaces to create the place people want to be, not just to go in and out, but to hang out? Cozy nooks and corners. It's not just about big open spaces. A place where you can bring a book and read, where you can meet with your friend, a kind of Starbucks. Why pay $3.50 for a cup of coffee when you go to the senior center and hopefully they'll have free coffee or at a minimal charge? Activity and multi-purpose rooms can take many different forms and have built-in flexibility. Arts and crafts, these might be more specific. If you did want something like woodworking equipment, it's probably not going to be moved in and out, but I don't know that was the highest priority. And outdoor spaces are really important for activities, for wellness, for socializing. And those are all the upsides. Here is the downside. It's not. This is just the reality. Public building is expensive. So Zero College was the least expensive because it's better soils, not by much. 79 Clark. I'm sorry. So 79 Clark was a little less expensive than 89 Clark, but not by much. And some of this is the vagaries. I think we showed a little more parking on 89 Clark. They're clustered together. 210 College, significantly more expensive because of the cost of dealing with the topography and the ledge and the poor soil for septic and all of that other stuff. And in the bottom of that text, you'll see 30%. So soft costs, which are engineering and architectural fees, legal fees, project management fees, all that stuff, that tends to add 30% to the cost of construction. So you end up with a pretty big number, well aware of that, but that's the reality today. So next steps. Utilize the remaining, number one, utilize the remaining bequest in this, to purchase the land after negotiating with the owner, which is number two. Seek funding, line item number three. Number four, form a building committee to take over from the ad hoc feasibility study committee. At a certain point, when the project becomes realer, the state requires an owner's project manager if there isn't in-town expertise to push the project forward. Number six, it's about getting money for owner's project manager fees and architecture and engineering fees. You push forward with design, get a total project cost, as opposed to, these are very preliminary numbers, what we've shown. Real numbers based on real design or further development of the design could be more money or less. Number eight, have to go through town meeting. Number nine, borrowing, debt exclusions. Those are the kinds of issues you face when you get real about getting a building built. Number 10, push forward with permitting to make sure all the departments in town are on board and their needs are met. Number 11, detailed architectural plans. Number 12, bidding and construction. And number 13 is open the new senior center. So, nice to see some smiles. It is a ways off, perhaps, but these things actually happen. And some of the steps taken to get there, funding opportunities, and we've had some input from a number of people on possible sources of funding. I'm not going to read this in detail. A lot of challenges, but a lot of opportunities, funding opportunities, and that's where we're at. And I'm not going to go through the appendix, but there's a lot of the background information on the online survey engineering assessments in detail and cost estimating. I think it's like a 25-page cost breakdown. So happy to entertain any questions or comments.
Well, thank you very much for that overview presentation. That was quite impressive to get through all of that in actually just a few months' time, because you guys started working in August, is that right? So
yeah, so it's been about 6 months. Yeah. And we had, thanks to the committee, every 2 weeks, rain or shine, we were there meeting with deliverables. They were demanding, which is the only way you get this stuff done.
Yeah, okay. Good. All right, I'll open up to any questions from Select Board, or Andrew, if you'd like to chime in on anything, just raise your hand and let us know, please, or do something, and we'll unmute you, or if you can unmute yourself. All right. Anybody have questions?
My first question is for the chair. What's your objective tonight?
My understanding, I believe, is just that we need to acknowledge that we've received this basically, as the feasibility study in final, and that their next steps, I think it's not for us, it's for the Senior Center Committee, I believe, to present this to the estate and figure out if the estate is okay with this or not. So I think all we're looking for from us, correct me if I'm wrong, is just a vote of support that, the study's here, we've heard it, we've seen it, and I think that's all we need to do. Is that correct? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. If you need something else for us, I don't know for sure.
Thank you, David, again. And no, I believe that based on the charge, our goal here today is just to share with you our process, our completed process for the feasibility study. We pass it on to the, like I said, the executor and the attorney, and hopefully wait for the approval and move to our next steps after that.
And the next steps would be what?
Setting up a
Slide.
Yeah, I think it was laid out pretty clearly in David's slide in the presentation that you have. But
If I could be
Yeah.
specific.
I can give you a couple of real specifics, okay, before. So once we receive the funding, we need to get an appraisal on the property. We need to take that property to a town meeting at some point in time.
I guess that's my question. So us just accepting this tonight, you're interpreting that as our consent to move forward with 89 Clark Street?
That's the recommendation from the committee.
Right, but as I remember the charge on both sides, COA and Public Safety, they present a recommendation. It's up to the Select Board to cast a vote to say whether or not we agree or disagree. And I didn't hear that we're doing that tonight.
I
We're
don't know
just
that we needed a
accepting.
vote on it.
Because I think only the
offhand.
Select Board has the authority to enter into or authorize the purchase.
I think this is basically to move forward to see if we receive the
first step,
funds
though,
or
is-
not.
The select board
Right.
doesn't weigh into
The study
see
itself.
whether or not we get the funding. That comes from the
Yeah,
attorney and the
and I'm good
executive.
with,
That's
I'm good with
separate
all
apart
of
from
that.
this.
Where I would want to put a roadblock or a stop sign
Yep.
to recheck in is before any consideration was made on 89 Clark Street.
Okay, so I'm.
Ed
I'm sure I'm
has,
following you.
can
Yeah, Ed,
just
go ahead. Sorry.
acknowledge Ed.
I'll separate them into two pieces. Whether you say acceptance, approval, or whatever, it allows them to send this along. Two-step path. Either it meets the criteria and the town receives the money, or it doesn't. I'm the glass is half full person. I'm going to say town receives the money. Next steps are appraisal on the property, acceptance, all of that. Still, as a purchase of property, whether the money comes from a will, town, debt, what have you, that requires a 2/3 majority vote of a town meeting, which means that the select board would have to approve that to be on a town meeting warrant.
Which would not be for this current town meeting, I don't
Correct.
believe. I don't think we'd get.
I
it.
do have the warrant in my back
Is that
pocket.
helpful,
Wait,
John?
no.
Well, I guess that means I have to ask all my questions tonight, because once we accept it, it's moving through the process. So, in that case, I have quite a few questions. So if anybody else wants to go first, that's fine.
How about if, I'm going to like to just make a motion, then we can discuss it. I'd like to make a motion to acknowledge receipt from the COA Building Feasibility Committee of the final report.
Okay. Could I have a second on that?
I'll second.
All right, so we have a second that we've received it. All right, now, open for discussion. And I do have, I believe, the charge that the building committee, the Building Feasibility Committee was given, which was basically to work with the town administrator to draft the SOW for the RFQ. So yeah, statement of work for the request for qualifications, determine the needed size, determine if town buildings could be repurposed, identify availability of other buildings in town, include elements that must be included in the design, provide information to the consulting firm that has been selected regarding the site selection and interior layout, and then complete the feasibility study and determine potential design and construction costs. So that was the sum total of the charge that we gave this committee, as far as I know. So that's, I think they've delivered on the charge of what they were.
Right, so
able to do.
under discussion, 2
Yeah.
points. One, I didn't hear anything in the charge about moving forward with acquisition. 2, the motion was just to accept the report, and under that, if that's, there's, I don't see what discussion there is. Either we got the report or we didn't get the report in order to have the vote.
Yeah, so we have the report, and I think the second part of what Janet had asked for was the support to go forward with contacting the estate and presenting the report to the estate, which per the will is what they're required to do. We're not involved in it yet, as far as I understand.
Right, and for the record, I have no objection going as far as that. My objection comes up to if we're zeroing in on page 57, item 1, unless I'm misinterpreting it, that 89 Clark Street property is the recommendation and the property to move forward with. If that's the case, I have underlying questions that I just want to get clarification on. before I would cast the vote to say, yeah, go that far.
Okay.
Yes, we got the report. Yes, go back to the estate and show them that we did it. But that's where I would say stop sign. But if our actions tonight do not allow another opportunity except for a 2/3 vote to put on a town meeting, then I'd like to ask all my questions.
Okay. All right, can we have a vote first that we acknowledge that we received the report and that we're fine with them pursuing this with the estate representatives?
Well,
No?
the motion on the floor is to
Was that-
acknowledge receipt of the report, period. That was the motion.
Okay, sorry.
I would like to amend and say receipt and endorse the report.
And endorse meaning?
Endorse or support, whatever word you choose, but the information that they gathered, they met the mandate of the charge. I think all of the information is very clear, very concise. They did everything to gather public input. I think they've checked all the boxes.
Okay. Is that clear enough, John, or you need another?
I don't, she amended the motion. I don't know what the motion
I
is.
said I
at the
wanted to
moment.
make the amendment to not only are we in receipt of the report, we endorse the report.
And allow them to move forward with,
Yes, with the.
To present it to the estate.
With the rest of the.
that's the
rest
end of that
the-
motion, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? All right. I have an amended motion. Could I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Second by Rini. Okay.
So under discussion, I would say, because there's a motion on the floor that's duly made and seconded, I am prohibited under Robert's rules of asking clarifying questions of the presenters. So I would ask that the motion be withdrawn until I can at least ask my questions and then take it up again if the committee wishes to run this through. But I just feel it's unfair that the committee wants to run this through without at least one member of the committee being afforded the opportunity to ask clarifying questions.
I'm happy to remove my second. I thought that you had your questions answered, so
Yeah.
if they aren't,
We
by
can
all
have the
means.
discussion. No,
I didn't even
we
ask
have
a
the
question.
second. No, but
Okay.
Okay.
make a
All right,
motion,
you asked a
second
few
the motion, then
questions.
comes the discussion, which is your question.
But my questions are to the presenters. If there's a motion on the floor and it's tabled, it's inappropriate for us to ask questions to the audience.
Correct. All right. Would
So
somebody
you-
like to withdraw the motion, please?
I'll withdraw the
And I'll
motion.
withdraw my second.
All right. Motion is withdrawn and seconded. It is withdrawn. John, you have questions. Go ahead.
I do. Could somebody clarify for me on the, I just want to understand the scoring on page 44. How, if I look at
Page 24?
44, well, I'm sorry, it's site evaluation, 44, it's the matrix where you scored everything. Specifically, the two abutting properties, 79 Clark Street and 89 Clark Street. How is it that, I guess, adequate conditions for septic, one got a 0, one got a 2? They're abutting properties. Abutting properties under the condition of adequate conditions for septic. One got a 0, one got a 2.
Yeah.
David, could you go back up to the mic, please?
Sorry.
And if you want to go back to that page, feel free.
Page 44.
Page 44.
This is based on information from our civil engineers.
Microphone, David, please.
Microphone.
Microphone's on the other side. You're speaking to.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. This is based on information from our civil engineers who looked at online databases and publicly available information on the condition of the soils. And there's enough variation that they thought that they were significantly different, and that's shown up in the size of the septic systems. Now, have a recommendation having been made, perk tests are anticipated, which will then kind of verify whether the conditions in 89 are as expected. So the recommendation on 89 versus 79 was not just based on that, because that could change as more investigations are done. It's on the location of the site in relationship to the industrial building next door and the proportions of the site.
Okay. And then the other difference between the two properties, again, I just want to, I'm trying to understand why two of the properties were scored differently. The manageable environmental constraints.
Yeah, and I think that there were some wetlands on one of the sites, and I think you can see this. Let's see. Yeah, it's not shown here on possible wetlands that might interfere with the development, not in the area where the development is taking place. And another issue was that there was a environmental, I don't know what it's called, incident. It's not expected that there's serious contamination. So this was a broad overview. Again, there had been remediation on a neighboring site, but it raised enough questions that showed up in the evaluation. And I'd have to go, there's a lot of detail lists on this in the environmental report on the Langen is the firm we hired in the appendix.
Okay. And then the, what are the other categories? Something about proximity to other town services. So I get that on that. I guess my only question is, and it's not related to those two properties, but what are, maybe broader, what are the other town services that you refer to? Are you referring to the library, to Norris, to town hall? The police department, fire department, highway? I mean, what are other town services?
Yeah, and it's a general category, but it's near the town center where there are other services, and there's the library nearby, and there's a park across the street. Those are the kinds of sort of, it's somewhat subjective, but that they're closer to services than some of the other sites. So and I'm sorry, which number?
I just wanted the broad terminology of that.
Yeah.
And the, and proximity to the town center. Are you defining the town center as town hall or the physical center?
Yeah.
Of the town geographically speaking?
Yeah. No. Town center being town hall and what's around it.
Okay.
We actually obtained the actual centroid of Southampton, which is actually a little bit further west than town center.
Yeah, but this is more quote-unquote town center, or capital T, capital C, meaning kind of right where we're standing as opposed to the geographic center. If where we are now was way on the edge of town, it would be more confusing, but we're close enough to the geographic center that it's not unmeaningful.
Was 89 Clark Street the one where the owner wanted to preserve a right-of-way to the rear of the property?
Yeah. Well, let's go to...
Show where you project that to be.
Well, I'm in the wrong end of this. Sorry about that.
You're in the detail there somewhere. One more.
Yeah, so you can see on the right edge between the parking lot and the red dotted line, so that's a 50-foot easement that the owner wanted to access the land at the back.
And it doesn't show there, but do you know roughly from the edge of the parking lot at the rear, how much footage is there going to the back of the property?
I don't know. There's quite. Yeah. And another question is, it's a 7.24 acres. That all might not be needed. You know, the town could choose to buy 4.5 acres. Our civil engineers, septic engineers say you should have 4.2 acres minimum. So that's a question. It's fairly far back to the end of the property.
Okay.
So you can see in the upper left.
Yeah. And at this point, the recommendation is just 89 Clark Street. Is the committee silent on whether they're proposing the 1,500 or the 1,200 at this point?
I'm sorry.
No.
Does it say it in here?
We had started with, I think initially, Abacus had come to us with the 15,000. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm just saying, it has.
Yeah, you said 1,500, so I just want to make sure we were talking about the right thing. So 15,000, and we said too big, we need to bring it down to size. I mean, we'd love a 15,000 square foot, but we know financially, we think we can survive over the next number of decades with a 12,000. So 12,000 is our choice.
Okay.
Okay, sorry if that wasn't clear. Yep.
And should 6 months from now the town decide that's not big enough, or you want expansion space, there's no reason 89 Clark wouldn't be adaptable to a larger building, short-term or long-term. So there's enough land, it doesn't foreclose on options, which is why a number of the other sites dropped away. They're just squeezed too tightly. There is no flexibility. There's no room to move.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks,
good.
Chris.
Yeah, good questions. No, thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Chris,
Jenna?
I would
Yeah.
just like to, I appreciate all the questions, and we're happy to answer any questions anytime, so thank you. Thanks.
Yep, okay. Anybody else have anything? Andrew, anything offhand? Don't want to cut you out here.
Nothing from me. Thanks. Just want to acknowledge the great effort of the committee. That's
All
it.
right. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for chiming in. Okay. So with that, I think we're ready now to have a motion, if someone would like to make a motion about this report and moving forward.
Okay, I'll make a motion to acknowledge receipt of the final Senior Center Feasibility Building Committee report and support it going to the attorney for determination of it being accepted as a final plan.
Okay, I have a motion by Rini. Could I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Second by Francine. Any further discussion? Okay, if not, could we have a vote, please? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. It passes 4-0. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate your time and effort.
I'd like to call our meeting to adjourn, and I have to take a roll call vote, please. So, Audrey, just,
You have a
okay.
motion?
Oh, do I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, do I have a second? Second. Thank you. All in favor, Audrey? Aye. Darcy? Aye. Libby? Rini?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
And Janet. Thank you.
Okay, so that meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. All right, so thanks very much again, folks. Much appreciate the presentation. Thank you. All right. Okay, next up on the agenda. Thanks. Next on the agenda, we have the Public Safety Building Committee. And we have a recommendation of an architectural firm to perform the feasibility study. That's the purpose of the presentation, I believe. So yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Mark Darnold, Chair of the Public Safety Building Committee. And we've been working over the last months preparing RFQs, requests for qualifications, and soliciting for an architectural firm to do the feasibility study.
Excuse me, do you want to call your meeting to order? Do you have a quorum?
We called
You
the
did?
meeting.
Okay, I'm
Yes.
sorry, missed that. Thank you. Of course.
You got 30 seconds?
Sure.
Oops. Coming out? One, two, three. Oh, yeah. We do go to order. Okay. My mistake. So, now I'll do this. Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Darnold.
Yeah. Due to previous workings with one of the architectural firms, I think it's probably best that I recluse myself from the presentation regarding choosing of an architectural firm, and would like to have a volunteer from our committee to take over my position for this particular presentation. And if I have a
Someone
volunteer.
ready to do that?
I confer with
Yes.
first?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you can read that or use your own.
You did call me?
Yep, we did. We did.
Hi, I'm Cindy Palmer, 71 Glendale Road. I'm a member of the Public Safety Building Committee. And we do have a vice chair who's not present tonight. So happily, I will do this in lieu of our chair, who has made the point as to why he couldn't do it himself. And I'm reading his presentation. The Public Safety Building Committee has been working on the preparation of a request for proposal, or RFQ, from qualified architectural firms to conduct a feasibility study and prepare a preliminary design for the construction of a public safety complex on a site to be determined. The selected firm will be required to perform the following: space needs assessment, conduct site evaluations, prepare project cost estimates and projected operation cost, investigate options for green design, evaluate existing facilities in comparison with other communities, and prepare a comprehensive final report. The committee received responses from 5 architectural firms on March 16th. After review of the written proposal, 2 firms were determined to be the best of the 5 firms, and those 2 firms were interviewed on Tuesday, April 4th. The committee met yesterday, April 10th, to discuss the proposals and interviews, then voted on recommending a firm to the Select Board to perform the study. The vote was 6-3 with 1 abstention. The firm that the committee voted to recommend to the Select Board was conducting the feasibility study is Cowlow and Bionic, architects of Chicopee, Mass. I hope I've pronounced it correctly, sometimes called CBA. It is my understanding that if the Select Board accepts the committee's recommendation for Cowlow and Bionic, the Select Board would then negotiate a fee with them to perform the work. Cialo and Bionic submitted a letter to the committee stating that, quote, a potential, unquote, range of fees from $85,000 to $135,000 might be appropriate. The Public Safety Building Committee made a motion to recommend that the Select Board, during any negotiations with the architect, ensure that the architect fully understand that the public presentations, public education, and providing the public with information regarding the project is a very important and integral part of the project, and that the Select Board and the architect fully incorporate that task into their fee and scope of work. That's our recommendation tonight.
Okay.
Any questions? And we do have a quorum, so if I'm personally not able to answer all the questions, we have other members of the committee here.
Yep. Okay. I would just like to, for the record, just read this. I received this afternoon at my home, a letter from Christina Madsen, who is your vice chair. Per this letter dated today, members of the Southampton Select Board, it is with great regret and discouragement I submit this letter of resignation from the Public Safety Building Committee, effective immediately. Most sincerely yours, Christina Madsen. So I'm gathering that we had some challenges during the meeting. So we will need to hear some questions, I think, about how you've gotten to your decision. I think we would have regular questions about how we, or how you've all looked at the proposals and scored them, because I know you had 5, you said, and you got down to 2 for the interview.
Correct.
Could you tell us what the scores are for the 5?
I cannot. I didn't bring those notes tonight, unless somebody else. I don't know, Rini, do you have that? I have that was in the minutes, yeah. So while she's looking for that, I'll tell you that there was a matrix that was predetermined that we all had a chance to look at and score on each individual. We did it separately. We did it on our personal time. We came back to a meeting, and I think that was March 27th, and we then discussed the scoring. In some cases, we changed our mind or whatever. We came up with final scoring, and then the top 2 firms were the ones that I'd mentioned. Oh, well, I'm sorry, I didn't mention the second one. The top one actually was HKT of Charleston, Mass. And the second top was Cialo and Bionic of Chicopee, Mass. So do you have those? They were in the draft minutes, yeah.
Chris, could I ask a similar question? You said the vote was 631, which would give you 10. Is that how many eligible voters there are on the committee?
Yeah, we do have an open position at this point. The member of the Finance Committee was withdrew.
So do you know, if anybody knows, did all 10 members of the current committee score all 5?
No. The chair, who already pointed out that he has a past professional relationship, he recused himself from all discussion and all voting and completely in order to avoid any perception of conflict of interest.
So the remaining 9, each one of those individuals scored all 5 responses?
Correct.
And then those were accumulated into a score?
Yes, that's correct.
And was there between number 1 and number 2, was it a matter of 1 or 2 numbers, or?
We can read those out loud, I think. Do you have those?
Yeah, I have the minutes. We had two that I have March 23rd, 2023. Wasn't there one after?
March 27th. They were draft to you before, because I've only posted. You can look on My Town Government right now, because I posted them today. We did approve the minutes.
Oh, they're posted already?
Yeah, we approved them at last night's meeting.
Okay,
Hold on.
If somebody can bring them. Oh, you know what? I'm looking in the wrong place. That's why.
On mytown.gov?
On mytown.gov on March 27th.
I know HKT had 62 points. It originally had 69 out of 70, but then we ended up, after the fact, removing Mark Darnold's scores. So I believe HKT came in at 62.
And I think there was...
and there was 52 or 4, 52 or 54
correct.
by
That's my memory,
CBA.
unless Chris can pull it up on My Town Government.
And the maximum available was 70?
Originally, before Mark's scores were removed, so the maximum would have been 63.
Yeah. And there were 4 categories up across, do you see those minutes, Chris?
Yeah, March 27th, is that what we're looking for? The minutes?
Yes.
All right, hold on. Let's get here. I think I've got them.
I think they're March 27th. They may be the April 4th ones.
Okay, hold on a
Which
minute.
time did we score them? March 27th or April 4th?
Yeah, I have it. HKT is 62, and CBA is 54.
That's Cialo Bionic
Yeah.
Associates.
So HT got 62,
Yes,
and the CBA got 54?
yes.
And then the other 3, and just so that, since I have them, so there was a group called EDM that was at 43, if I'm reading this right? H2M at 41, and JCT at 31. So there were 2 between you said the maximum was 70?
63.
No, but the maximum score possible was?
63.
63.
Well, that was before we withdrew the chairs.
Each member had 7 points.
Okay. So 63 was the maximum, so we had a 62 and a 54, and then there was a drop-off down to the 40s and a 30, the way the minutes read here. Okay.
So that scoring got the top 2 in for interview processes? Then,
Correct.
Then you conducted simultaneous interview, or the same?
Yes, then on the 4th of April, both firms agreed to come. They were given a choice. The first firm got the first choice, came in at 3:30 p.m., and that was HKT. They did a presentation, a PowerPoint. It was taped. I looked for it on eMedia, and the last time I looked, it hadn't yet been posted. It may still be there. It may be there now. And then that was the first 30 minutes, and the second 30 minutes, prepared questions, advanced prepared questions from the board, and discussion, etc. And then it was over within an hour. We took a break, and then the second, which was CBA, same thing, exact same format, same questions, and no discussion at that time because that was the night of the caucus. So we really had no time to deliberate or discuss. So we all did that on yesterday's meeting, which was the 10th of April.
Okay. And all 9 members were present for both portions?
I believe so. I think so. I don't think anybody was absent for any. We did have one member remote yesterday just as you have tonight, and he was fully present, however, for the entire discussion and contributed to the vote.
Okay. And there wasn't another score, right? You had the interview. There's not an additional scoring.
We didn't do a different.
It just went into discussion the following day, or the following meeting.
Correct.
There was no actual scoring of the interview itself? Or
Would you ask me that
there was
again?
no scoring of the interview itself?
No, it was discussion.
Presentation, rather.
It was discussion of the presentation. Various people were able to speak on their own.
Right. So,
Just
go ahead.
Just a question. So you mentioned that one of these, the CBA, is it, that they had given you some potential cost estimate. Did you have one from the other firm as well?
Actually, Ed asked, I believe when he invited them to come to to do their presentations, he asked them at that time, would you be able to submit a range? And if I haven't got that right, Ed, could you clarify that for me?
No, you got it right.
Yeah, I got it right. So to give a range for what would be their charge for performing the feasibility study. I'm going to tell you what my memory of what HKT said, and if I don't get this correctly, please clarify this. They said that as they looked at the RFQ, they felt that there was a lot of things requested there, and that they couldn't give an actual range because they felt it would be important to clarify what kinds of things were the primaries and what might be secondary, perhaps removed from that, and that would give them a better opportunity for providing anything, a range or a proposed amount. So we didn't get an actual number from HKT, but we did from Callum Bianek, who also mentioned that there was a lot of things that were requested, but they were able to provide that in writing.
Is that what drove the add-on at the end of your report? That the select board makes sure that the incumbent and the contract understands?
Okay, well, now you're asking me for my opinion, and I will give you my opinion, but I will also be sure that everybody on the committee is in agreement, if that's what you want me to do. This is important. Is that what you want me to do?
Yeah, again, I realize you were reading someone else's report,
Correct.
but it was in there for, I'm assuming there's a reason why that language was added to get our attention.
Okay.
And go
So, by the way, that meeting was also recorded, so anybody can go back to actually how this discussion ensued. So we all seem to agree the largest consensus was that the cost of a public safety building committee is going to, a public safety building is going to be a very critical factor. And in order to have the whole community, all the electorate on board, that presentations and education of the public are going to be very, very, very critical. And we wanted to emphasize that the firm that was chosen was aware of the critical importance of doing a good presentation, and just as this statement that our chair wrote, that ensure that the architect fully understand that the public presentations, public education, and providing the public with information regarding the project is a very important and integral part of the project. That's why I believe that add-on was on. Is that everybody else's understanding who were there then? Rini, is that correct?
Well, let's just say also that the firm that was voted on by the committee is the same firm that did the feasibility study in 2015, and there were comments made during the meeting that perhaps that wasn't one of the things that had been emphasized enough.
At that time? Yeah. I think that was one of the points that we had as we were discussing the charge, was the importance of the public education to get the town on board. And so did that come through in the proposals that as they were presented during the
Did what come through? Their ability to do the presentation?
The intent or the interest or the emphasis on really trying to do some public education and outreach? We heard tonight the outreach was done on the feasibility study for the senior center, from surveys to public meetings. Was that part of the discussion that went through the presentation that both entities made to you all, I guess is the question?
I believe they both acknowledged that, and I believe, in fact, hopefully you can clarify if I didn't get this right, that we asked them for their availability. Would they be able to attend public meetings? We definitely wanted that included some discussion of their ability to, or their time ability to present to our public, to maybe participate in a public meeting where we're gathering understanding of what the public wants in a public safety building. Yeah. I do know that just about every single member of the committee at our discussion yesterday spoke very highly of the HKT people's ability to do a presentation. And they often started out their discussion with that and saying, HKT did a great presentation, or something to that effect. And yet then they, other people had other things to say as to why one firm was chosen over another firm, and everyone was able to give their opinion.
So just in fairness, since I was difficult on the Council on Aging, if the ranking was 1 and 2, I have to imagine that something happened. So in the discussion, what were some of the, and I don't know who voted which way, but I guess my question would go to the 6 individuals that voted for a CBA. What was it that you heard in one presentation or not in the other that made you swing 7 points and replace and knock out number 1 for the number 2 scoring?
Well, Mr. Lumber, I think that at this point you are asking for a personal opinion, which I will be happy to give, but I think everybody on the committee who's present tonight should also be able to speak, if that's the case.
I'd like to hear from the 6 people that voted that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't believe all 6 are here, okay, but we do have a quorum tonight, so I personally, if you wish for my personal opinion, is that what you're looking for, or not?
I'm just looking for some understanding as why, generally speaking, in this process, it's usually you do the ranking and the interviews just confirm your scoring. In this case, it went in the opposite direction. And I wasn't there, I didn't watch it. Perhaps it makes perfect sense. Coupled with, this meeting was yesterday, or today, right?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, and then today, a resignation comes in from the person that chaired it. Are the two connected? I don't know, but it begs the question, what happened, if anybody wants to share or not.
I'm happy to speak on my own behalf, but I'm not going to speak on behalf of the whole committee, if that's okay. All right. So I personally saw the need to have objectivity and transparency and clarity and fresh eyes and certainly qualifications, which we were certain both firms presented in advance. And I definitely felt that HKT would bring that. And I thought, on behalf of our town, I think this is a critical time. We're not going to have another chance. If we go another 10 years or 8 years or 12 years, it's going to cost a lot more. It's already going to cost a lot more compared to 2015. So that was my feeling. And so obviously I was one of the votes for of the 3. And I think it's important that anybody else that wants to stand up be able to speak at this point. I don't know if anybody else wants to stand up and speak on who had another vote. I don't think anybody wants to. Well, stand behind the vote.
So it was a challenge. I think that HKT was absolutely, they did score high. They did do a very polished presentation. I think some of the things that swayed it for me were particularly geared towards costs. I mean, there was such an emphasis last time that we'd come through with a Public Safety Building Committee proposal. It really revolved around the cost of the project. And although HKT was more polished, had a lot of good ideas in regards to attributes that you could add into a facility, it didn't feel to me as though we have a large budget for frivolous things. It really felt like what we really needed to focus on was really the bare bones that we could produce a building for and bring to the town. So the Kalo and Beanick, they were the company that had come in before. They had a lot of pre-existing knowledge as to what we were faced in regards to our needs and just what was available to the town. I think when they had come in initially, they were faced with a lot of, the Historic Society wanted to keep the old fire station intact. They wanted to have a facade that matched the characteristics of the fire station as it was. And they wanted community space. And the challenge at that time was, the number that came up, it's a challenging site even as for a senior center. It's a challenging site for the fire station and was back then, and it came in at about $10 million. And somehow, I think we lost in that proposal moving it forward however many years ago, because I think it termed as like Taj Mahal. And I really feel like what we're fighting against is, we had things that we were working towards and had to be incorporated into that last design, and I don't want to see. I personally would like to see something. We're in a building that was built prior to the Civil War, and that's the fire station. I want to see this be successful. I don't want it to cost the town a lot of money. I think that we really need to have our focus on the best building for the least amount of money.
But I think, can I interrupt? I think what we're talking about here, though, is the feasibility study. We're not at the building stage yet.
No, they're going to be doing the cost
feasibility
estimating
from site to site to site, right? I mean, to choose, you had several sites in mind, I assume, too, from what we'd heard before, right?
Correct.
So
There are
this
still.
would be the process now to move forward and say, okay, evaluate each of those sites, town-owned or private,
Correct.
and come back as the ending product of the feasibility
And do a
study to
cost
show
analysis.
which one is the real deal, the size you need and where it fits, kind of like what we heard on this. That's what
Correct.
we're aiming for right now.
That's absolutely correct.
So in terms of the cost, I guess I'm a little confused, because I heard you say something between the 85 to 130 or 40, but I'm hearing that we didn't even get a price yet from HKT. And if I'm recalling this correctly, this RFQ went out for 3 different times. And one of the reasons it had to go back out was because we had put a very low ceiling on the original request of, I think, was $75,000, which we had approved through ARPA.
Correct.
That was not acceptable because you were getting 0 responses to the RFQ once and twice. And this last time, I think it went out with language saying that the fee would be negotiable.
Correct.
So I'm a little confused as to how one group that scored the highest can be eliminated from the process when you haven't even given them more direction on, or having the ability to give you an actual price range. That's where I'm
If it was
confused.
I guess the price that you're referring to for the cost of them to do the work wasn't the price that I was concerned with. I'm concerned with the cost of the overall build. So part of what they're doing is a cost estimation.
But we're not at that stage yet.
That's what these people are supposed to be doing. That's part of what we're paying them to do, is a cost estimation.
Two questions. The first one is, other than the discussion of when they were invited back for their interviews and being asked, if possible, could they suggest a range, and CBA saying 85 to 135, and HKT saying they would need to have more discussion and narrow it down. Did either one of them talk at all about any other cost?
No.
I think this is going to be X. Okay, they did it. So what I think I'm hearing is, because they were here 10 years ago, they should already have some of this work done, and they're not going to double charge us for it.
The sense that I got from HKT was they'd built a lot of structures, not all of them geared toward public safety. I do know more history of the Kalo and Beanick because they built like Easthampton, they have Northampton. There's a lot of facilities that they'd been involved with the build with, including Westhampton Fire Department. So it's challenging because I do have knowledge of what they've designed and some of the monetary things that have come from that. HKT, I don't have that same depth of knowledge with. When I look back through, and I did reach out to like Tisbury, which is down in the Cape, because they were one of the other facilities where they had built a fire station, public safety. I haven't heard back from them yet, unfortunately, because it really would be good to get a sense of how the people who had them come in, how they felt about them. There wasn't enough time to get that information back. It's limited. We're trying to move all of this along. But the sense I had was that they were building higher end things. They were building, granted, they were building in more towards East Coast. They're from Charleston. I did feel as though that they weren't as geared towards what we were trying to get as a final outcome, which is, public safety building. I think that Kayla and Bieniek had more experience in that. It doesn't mean that the other firm couldn't have met that challenge. At some point, it's a subjective feeling that you're just going with. So I feel like you're grilling me to say that it should be the one that scored the highest. Well, then why would we even have a meeting? Why would we just not score them the highest and choose that one? I think at some point there's a subjective thing that comes into it, and the majority was looking to, had felt the confidence with the Kayla and Bieniek. You'd have to go each individual, but to grill the individuals for having a subjective idea feels like, nobody likes to serve on committees when you get grilled for just having.
We're not trying to grill you, John.
Job.
And I would say that this process is supposed to be an objective process.
And it should
And that's
be.
why there is scoring. That's why there was
Absolutely.
a comparative scoring matrix that was outlined in the RFQ. If I'm not mistaken here, the way you all got to your scoring of 63 or 54 or 31 is by looking at the proposal that they all presented that showed how many years they had to have as a minimum, right? Doing public safety kinds of things. Or
So
how
should
many
we just have
years,
picked them from that and not done anything for discussion? Is that what you're saying?
No, but I'm saying, but that's how you arrived at your scoring, right? Was
Sure.
looking at that comparative. So if you're telling us that HKT got a higher score, then that tells me that there was something you all saw that said, okay, they've got more than their 5 years of experience, or they've done more than X number of buildings. That's all I'm saying, is based on what they were supposed to do and how the scoring was supposed to happen, that's how you got there, from what I'm understanding. But go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if Ed wanted to weigh in earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw this out, and I'm an ex officio non-voting member, and there was obviously two factions and thoughts in that room, and there was a couple people that I think could have gone either way. And I will agree, I think HKT did a better presentation. However, there's two components to a feasibility study, and it's not just the public outreach and the presentations, but you have to take a viable, shall we say, conceptual design, and in my opinion, the Senior Feasibility Committee did an excellent job with this, and start and go, what do we need problematically? And I think John has gotten to it, maybe not directly, but okay, maybe the subjectivity of that meeting is, to me, CBA was more direct. They did their homework. They actually did some reading. They compared the sites. They knew the sites that the Senior Center Feasibility Committee was looking at and the PSBC. And they kind of went with that. But if you've got a firm that perhaps you don't think or didn't get the perception that they're great in a presentation, but are they going to load that programmatic required schematic design with other things that maybe the town doesn't want, that all of a sudden brings up the program cost, where you have another firm that, okay, yeah, they've been here before. They know the issues of money's tight and they're not going to build in a lot of bells or whistles. That gets you to a point that might be more saleable in a presentation or getting public outreach. I just think, to me, not voting, and I'd be happy working with either one of these companies. I'll put that up front. But I thought that CBA actually hit more points that said, they're already doing some work on this. They've been here before. They know some of the issues. They know we can't build a Taj Mahal, that money's tight. And that's the impression that I got.
Okay. So you answered the question, I'm
Rita,
sorry.
go ahead. I mean, sorry, Francine, I'm sorry.
So you answered my question about how things are going to be different this time with this same company than they were the last time.
Yeah, one of the focus.
That they now understand that they overshot and that people were very disappointed in the cost as well as the communication. And did they actively talk about how they're going to get better at doing that? Or it's just your impression that they learned the lesson from the last time? I'm trying to figure this out.
I mean, they certainly acknowledged that there was concerns last time. And they did have a lot of factors that played in last time. And they recognized that it was unsuccessful. They took that loss like we took that loss. We need a public safety building. We don't want fancy. We just want something that we can fit trucks in. I think they heard that, and I think that I felt as though they addressed that certainly in their design, and at the time, I had the feeling that they were cognizant of costs. They certainly had their challenges.
Really recognized by the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I totally accept the vote of this committee. I cannot vote in favor of this firm. What I heard yesterday was that they're local, that they like the buildings that have been built by this firm before, and they liked working in the past with this firm, and I don't think it's fair to the other firm because they don't have the opportunity. I think we have a very different perception. You say they did their homework. Other people said they did their homework. I felt like when they did their presentation, they already started the feasibility committee. They already identified where the best site for this public safety complex was. I think that it's extremely important that whoever's hired is objective. I have tried very hard on this committee to not bring up the past. The past includes a lot of controversy. It involves a lot of controversy about the land, it involves controversy about the select board, and it involves a lot of controversy around what happened the first time around. So I feel that I did not hear anything about HKT saying that it's going to be more bells and whistles, it's going to be more money. I don't think money came up at all, except for the discussion around what the fee would be, and they did not propose a fee. I just can't support spending $100,000 to $150,000 of townspeople's money to hire a firm that did not do a good job the first time. I thought the proposal was poorly written. I think the other firm did a better presentation. Like I said, I accept the decision of this committee. I cannot support hiring the firm.
Okay, thanks for that. Other questions from anybody?
Questions, no, I guess my thing is,
Yeah.
we should, whether it's this project or whatever project is, it's always got to be transparent, and in a public procurement process, at least it's been my experience, that if you can drop number one and go with number two after you've done the interview, you just have to clearly articulate the reasoning why. Otherwise, it was basically a blind score, right? Because I'm guessing that you guys didn't all sit around a table together and do your scores. You did them independently and came up with these numbers. And the blind score had HKT ahead, and not by 1 or 2 points, almost the weight of a full person. Then you had the interviews, and I'm just not hearing the clear reason that came out in the interviews that caused the committee to decide to flip. And that's a concern of mine, so.
Yeah, I think the challenge was, honestly, I did feel a bit on the fence because the HKT presented very well. They had a high score.
Yeah.
I thought that.
So John, that just reaffirms my belief.
If it went
there wasn't a clear cut, they didn't come across on their report this way, but in person, they hit it a home run right here, and here's what. That's what I'm not hearing. And I'm here on the fence, so you could go either way.
It's very subjective, and if the committee had voted the other way, I wouldn't have quit and left. I mean, I think that I think the adversity in having a difference of opinion is a healthy thing within the committee. I think that when the predominance feels, and they may all get a chance to come up here and speak, and I welcome them to it. Was I so committed to Kalo and Beanick that I would quit the committee if they didn't get hired? No. I would have been fine with HKT. I think that they were close enough when you did the comparison of their score, and then you balanced what they had for projects and how you thought they would be responsive in a local setting. They were very close. And so if you want me to say, oh my gosh, I think the Kalo and Beanick was, far and well beyond the other, I can't say that. They were very close.
Yeah.
I mean, so could I have voted the other way? It was inches. Honestly, it was inches. Can I justify that, that I'm going to carry the banner for Cabello and Beanick because, I think they're a strong firm. I lean to that direction. I voted to that lean, but it's not so much of a lean that I'm going to quit a committee. I'm going to, embrace the. I think Rini brings up, good points. I think that, the other company presented well, and that was, I think, one of the reasons why I, in particular, really wanted to see it when negotiation, because you folks do negotiation, we don't do negotiation. I really wanted to emphasize the fact that was their weakness as compared to this other one, the HKT. I think that presentation, we need that kind of public presentation to be in the final, presentation to the community. So I lean towards Kalo and Beanick just slightly, enough to vote that way, but I also felt like from seeing what else was out there that they could do a better job in presentation, and I think it needs to be emphasized when you sit there and negotiate any kind of contract with them. But it's not major, and I honestly I feel bad that our vice chair stepped down. I feel like that's unfortunate that she felt so strongly that she didn't want to be on the committee unless it went the way she voted.
Can I just ask, I wasn't there, well, maybe it's not fair, but...
I asked her later, I said, she just didn't feel comfortable. I said, boy, it's a loss because...
I don't want to presume any reason because the letter just said I resign, so I don't want to say, and I don't think anyone should say the reason, because I don't know, and neither do any of us.
Right. Yeah, okay. I think Ian would like to speak.
Sure.
And Chris, just one point I want to bring out is, just so you are aware, Abacus was the second point scorer for the senior center feasibility project also. The point spread was less than this was, but they were the second place firm.
But I believe we had a consensus decision to recommend one entity. So even though the scoring, something happened in the interview process and the discussion to bring them all together, right?
It was a unanimous vote.
For the committee. So, I mean, when you've got, a wide split here, it just raises a concern, especially with this. But Ian, yes, please.
Hi, Ian Illingsworth, Police Chief. Neither presenter was as good as the gentleman that was with the COA, I can tell you that much. He was fantastic. However, sitting here and listening to this and observing comments about subjectivity and objectivity, I think as a committee, we erred. And we did not have a matrix for the interviews. And because we did not have a matrix for the interviews, everybody was scoring subjectively. They were looking at their own independent, I can say for myself, I was looking at certain things versus what was I supposed to be looking at. There was no outline as to what exactly I was supposed to be looking at, and nobody else had that. So I think that led to some of the subjectivity that you were referring to. For myself, I voted for CBA, and it was a subjective reasoning. If I had an outline, and I don't blame anybody for this, this was something that I think in retrospect, if we could do it all over again, I think I would have some form of a matrix. What exactly are we looking for? Because presentation was important, but what about the examples that they provided? Was that important as well? I don't know. What were we looking for? Because we didn't have that. I will tell you this much. The scales, my internal review of them, the scales were very, very close. And what tipped the scales to CBA for me was that they were local, And they made reference to basically having unlimited discussions with us because of their proximity and locality. That was a tipping scale for me. I also had been to a site visit at one of the complexes from the prior committee meeting, and I really was impressed by the design of a building where they incorporated a aesthetically pleasing facade, but also a very cost-effective building with almost like a Morton building or a pre-engineered building. Those were my tipping scales. Now, if I could go back and have a discussion with Christina, and if I knew that she was going to leave based on the fact that she couldn't work with this particular firm, as she said in her resignation letter, I believe she made reference to that.
Specifically. It was just that she was disappointed.
She was disappointed. I would have chosen...
Sorry. It was with regret, great regret and discouragement that I submit this letter of resignation.
Okay,
That's all she says.
all right, okay. I won't go any further than that, but if it was something to do with HKT, the scales were so close that Christina on our membership was more important than choosing CBA over HKT. But just to finalize that's why I chose the way I did. But again, I think if I as a committee member could go back, I would want a scoring sheet. I would want a matrix like we did with the RFQ. And what exactly are we supposed to be looking at here? And I think that would have been able to provide more reasonable answers to perhaps your questions as to why it went one way or the other.
It might give a more solid foundation,
Yes.
perhaps. I mean, perhaps, yeah. Yeah, and I think, just to point out, I respect what you're saying, and I think one of the things you're pointing out, though, about them being local and how that can be a convincing factor. I agree with that, but I will remind us all that the gentleman who did present tonight is not local at all. So it didn't prevent them from having bi-weekly meetings from what we heard tonight. So whether it's in person or in Zoom, it's really the availability and the motivation and the interest, I think, of the firm that's ultimately chosen. And so I don't know that location is a make or break situation. It's important.
It is.
It's important.
It will tip the scales,
Yeah.
and that's why I use that phrase.
Yep, got it.
If I have two people at equal, and somebody says I can meet whenever you want,
sure,
that's going to tip scales for me on a subjective level.
Sure. Yeah.
But perhaps that would never even have been assessed if the committee at some point realized, maybe we should have a matrix for this interview process.
Okay. Thanks for that. Okay. Any further thoughts from the board? One of the things that comes to my mind, I'm not positive that I'm ready to vote on this tonight. I personally would like to, and I haven't had a chance to go and actually listen to the interviews, just for my own self, and I don't know if that's an appropriate thing to suggest that the board take a pause and do that over the next couple of days and come back on this issue. I mean, the committee had a charge. They've carried out their charge. They've had a vote. I'm not sure that we have, I don't know, do we have the ability to hold off and get other information personally, directly ourselves? Is that appropriate? I don't know.
What harm, if any, Mr. Town, if we could ask the town administrator, would a 48-hour delay in action cause? None. Now, can the whole committee reserve 3 hours to listen to the tapes?
Well, yeah, how long was it was an hour? It was a half an hour and a half an hour?
They're each an hour.
Huh?
Each an hour.
Each an hour?
They're each an hour with question and answer.
So an hour. I mean, I think this is important. I mean, I would make the time myself. I mean, I think, there's no question, I think, among any of us that this is desperately needed. A new public safety complex, there's no argument to be had that this isn't needed, okay? But I do want to see us have the best chance of moving forward and getting to a successful point. And I'm a little nervous when we have bumps in the road right at the very beginning before we get into the real nitty-gritty of what this thing is going to look like, And having town support, having citizen support is beyond crucial. I mean, I think that's really, really important, given some of the stumbling blocks that were encountered last time. So, if the committee is willing, and the board is willing to, do this, if that will help, I don't know. Do we have any recourse, I guess, as the board? Do we have any decision-making power vis-a-vis the committee that has presented their recommendations?
Right, the committee has made the recommendation. We
control the person on the study, for sure.
Ratify it or flip it.
Yeah.
Or do nothing with it, right? Those are really our three options.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, we've put forth up to $125,000 in ARPA money for the study. So I would want to be sure that that money is well allocated, I guess. Yeah, that's my only feeling, hearing all of the different points, because I do get the sense that this wasn't so clear-cut, that it sounds like there's, some gray areas for some people, and that's understandable. I think that's true. I don't know. Anybody thoughts? Ed, any thoughts? Guidance? No?
Guidance? I mean, I can't set fault with you trying to make the right steps and make the correct decision. So, 40, whether it's 48 hours or a week or, what have you. 48 hours. See if you go over those, if you think you'll find some information in those interview tapes or what have you, I think it's a good idea.
What is everybody comfortable with, John?
I would just say, let's be cautious not to do the same thing the committee did.
Yeah.
If you are going to want us to review it, then give us our matrix.
Yeah.
To score it. Because otherwise, they'll just turn the table and say we are subjective.
Right.
In the opposite direction.
The interview portion is supposed to be subjective. The RFQ scoring is the non-subjective part.
So I go back to, I'm happy to find some time tomorrow evening at the school board, after the school board, to listen to it for 2 hours. But I go back to, I would have to hear something, in my view, I would have to hear something from HKT where they, during the interview, admitted to a misrepresentation within that said, well, if I knew that then I would have scored them differently. Or hear something in CBA where they missed something from their presentation and I said, oh, if I knew that, I would have scored them higher. But lack of hearing that on one way or the other, I personally would fall back to the scoring, because that was the subjective part. But
I mean, perhaps one of the things, I'm assuming there was a spreadsheet or something kept of the individual, was it 9, or I'm sorry, that actually scored that got to the 63 and the 54?
Yes, I'm the one that compiles the individual scores
Right, so there were individual scores, and then that all got compiled into one spreadsheet.
Right.
I mean, I think at one point it would be good maybe to give us, I would like to request a copy of that spreadsheet, just to see the difference in scoring for the different categories. But I tend to agree with John that we would want to have some guidance in terms of what we're looking for in the interview, in the presentations rather, before we did that. What we might do as a compromise would be to, when we meet on Thursday, is to suggest some of that guidance for looking at the tapes, and then give us a little bit longer time to actually view them against the quote-unquote matrix as an idea. Would that be doable?
I don't necessarily think we have to have another joint meeting.
Yeah.
Right? We can accept their report, and again, we're going to ratify it, we're going to reject it, or we're going to reverse, vote a different way, right? I don't know that we have to have everybody back in by force. You're certainly willing to come down, participate.
So just so you know, the committee had submitted questions to ask of the firms as part of the interview process. So basically, they presented for about a half hour, maybe to 45 minutes, and then the chair, who was Christina, asked all the same questions to both firms in the question and answer at the end. So they answered questions. So that was basically the format of the interviews.
So both committees had the same questions and answers?
Same questions,
rather. Not answers. Same questions presented.
So I don't know, Ed, who has the list of questions? Because that might be helpful for the committee.
Yeah.
So whoever has that in the Word document can maybe send it to the select board. That would be helpful, I think.
Okay. So I would like to move that we do not take any kind of a vote on this tonight, that we reserve some time to get a copy of the scoring spreadsheet, to get, did you say that the recordings are posted already, or are they not posted yet? Do we know?
I was just asking, and we'd have to double check. The last time I looked, they were not posted, and that was a few days ago. So perhaps they are by now, and if necessary, we can call tomorrow and...
Reminder of the date when the interviews took, or the presentations took place?
April 4th. April 4th, the day of the caucus. Is that
Okay.
April 4th? Yeah.
Yeah, last Tuesday.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. We'll check on that. We can certainly find out from Easthampton Media if they're not available, they can make them available. I would ask that Select Board then for next Thursday night, if everybody could come back with a couple of ideas on what they would think would be something contributing to some level of a scoring or an evaluation type of
So
process.
this Thursday or the following Thursday?
Well, just to come back with some ideas of what would help us develop some sort of a matrix type thing, but not to actually spend time before Thursday to view the tapes, because I think we don't need to be, in a similar position of being rushed. If we've got time, give us enough time to actually view the tapes.
Chris, can I just ask a question? We have both of our chiefs on our committee, and it is critical that that whatever their questions are for who would do this feasibility study, not building, not architecture, that they feel that those kinds of things were addressed. I just didn't know if you want to invite any members of the committee to just like email you some ideas or something for that matrix that you're talking about.
That would be fine too, sure.
So,
yeah, I'd appreciate that. Just email probably Ed and myself, if you would do it, anybody that wants to, that has specific questions you'd like us to consider. But I think that would be at least a half step to take a look at developing some level of criteria, I guess I would call them, to evaluate what we're hearing and understand, what we're hearing and seeing. And then just to get that sort of ready for Thursday. And if there are additional questions that you would want to add to that, we'll take that. But then we're not going to actually work on viewing the recording until, probably another week or so. Okay? Does that make sense then, everybody?
In the meantime, Ed, you're going to send out the results of the scoring and also the questions that the committee posed to the interviewees, is that right?
I don't know if I have the questions.
Cindy has them, so Cindy.
Okay, so...
Or somebody, or Mark has them? Okay.
So you'll send them to Ed and Chris?
Yeah, okay, that'd be good. All right. So at this point in time, I've made that motion that we not take action. Could I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. So thank you for coming and presenting that. It's definitely been a challenging time, and I appreciate your time and effort for all that you've put into making this get this far. So we'll put it on a hiatus, yes, and you guys need to adjourn your meeting.
Okay. I was asked by the chair to ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting. No, I didn't get the motion yet. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. So the Public Safety Building Committee meeting is adjourned.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for coming, everyone. Appreciate
Chair,
it.
can I just request before we go into our reports that we maybe entertain the appointments and resignations so we don't keep people waiting?
Sure.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2 resignations. The first is Angela Baldock. We had already heard about and saw her resignation as the interim assistant town treasurer collector. And then Barbara Simborski resigning from the Finance Committee, the Public Safety Building Committee.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Could I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Second by Francine. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And I'll make a motion to approve Heather Pellegrini for the Capital Committee, term to expire June 30th, 2024.
Okay. Motion by Rini. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
All right.
Heather's here.
Heather's here if you'd like to come up and say hello and give us a little bit of interest.
Heather
Pellegrini. As to why you're interested.
76 Crooked Ledge Road. I've spent a number of years working on the Finance Committee. I thoroughly, well, not thoroughly, but I enjoyed a lot of my time with that. Felt good about a lot of stuff we accomplished. And been away from it for a little while, so I just like to get my feet back in and volunteer for the town in some capacity. Finance is my background, accounting, so I felt like capital was a good fit based on my background.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Good, thanks for coming. Okay. All right, so I believe we have a motion and a second.
Could I just ask, is there just one position available in capital?
Yes.
I think
So right now,
One vacancy.
I think it's
correct.
one.
there's one vacancy.
Yeah.
And the total number of people on the committee is how many?
5.
5, okay.
All right, I make a motion to approve Heather Pellegrini to the Capital Committee.
Already made the motion.
Yes.
It was already
She made
made.
motion
Oh, you did?
You-
All
I
right.
think you seconded it.
And I second. We're
Yeah,
done.
okay.
You
All right.
talked,
John
okay.
seconded
We
it.
didn't have,
Thank
John
you.
seconded it, sorry. Somebody down there seconded it. Somebody to my right seconded it.
All right, there we
Okay.
go.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. And if no further discussion, could we have a vote, please? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank
motion
you for
approved.
stepping up.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate it. All right. Okay. Now,
You'll get a little certificate from my assistant, Judy.
yeah, you'll
get sworn.
need to,
Thanks.
yeah, swear in, yeah. Okay, do we have, just in the interest of time, because I know we have got some budget stuff going on tonight that we have to tackle and a few other things, do we have any major reports to the select board from your various committees, something that you'd like to share, or Ed, from your town report? I don't know.
Actually, I think the only thing I've got that isn't somewhere in an agenda item is that we seem to be in line to close on the Upper Pomeroy Meadow Road parcel that was at one of the previous town meetings for aquifer protection and the future site of potential for future site, if needed, of a town well that it looks like will probably be closing around the beginning of, God, I almost just said June.
Okay, good. So that's, all the various details are being worked out and coming to some level of agreement on that. Yeah.
Yes, and they've come to agreement on the conservation restrictions, so
Okay.
now it's all the other fun work of putting it together, having it surveyed, and
Okay,
putting everything in line.
great. Okay, very good. Glad for that. Okay. And we'll pick up, obviously, if there's something else that we need to talk about on Tuesday, we can add that. But otherwise, we'll, sorry, on Thursday, but we'll not go into a detailed town report tonight. How about some other select board reports from your committees? Francine?
Yeah. I don't have anything that's urgent, but I would like to have an opportunity
go
at the
ahead.
next meeting.
Yeah, well, go ahead,
To-
because you're getting down to your few meetings left here. So go ahead and put yours on the record here, what we have.
All right. The ZBA met on April 3rd to consider a permit request for property at Zero College Highway by new city developers for the purpose of constructing 40 freestanding two-bedroom condominium units, approximately 1,500 square feet each. The development would include the requisite 10% affordable units, 4. And the presentation included a rendering of the entire area, inclusive of house placements, road access, and green space. Multiple abutters attended the meeting to ask questions and to raise concerns. The zoning board vote was 3 in favor and 1 opposed. And just, I can't overlook the work of the bylaw committee. They held a public meeting last night on April 10th to demonstrate the new web-based town bylaw platform developed over the last 2 years with general code. In anticipation of a low turnout, the bylaw committee arranged that the demonstration be recorded and available for future viewing. We believe that many more people will view the recording once the new bylaw website is live. The ease of access and maneuverability was well demonstrated by a general code representative, and we learned of many more features of the E360 system that include data collection on number of visitors to the site and analysis by content area, day and time of the week. The system will also archive all bylaws by date of adoption so that going forward, Southampton will build its historical bylaw record, which currently is housed probably in multiple places at this point in time, and in memories of residents. The bylaws will be available in more than 100 languages with no additional cost. There's a warrant article detailing the reorganization, codification, and the edits needed for consistency to update our town bylaws, and that's included in the annual town meeting warrant coming up on May 2nd. The new town bylaw platform will be launched within a short time of the town's approval. If approved, Southampton will join more than 130 cities and towns across Massachusetts that utilize the E360 system to provide easy access to information important to us residents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yep. John, anything?
I don't have anything that can't wait.
Okay, Rita?
I just wanted to mention that the Council on Aging has a memory cafe next week on the 20th of April at 10 o'clock. And there's also the Friends Annual Luncheon is May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, with a theme of Cinco de Mayo. And the CPC has 3 articles for the warrant. And I did pass along the concern by the Select Board in terms of the Board of Assessors having, some definitive plan in terms of the staffing. And they are down a seat. There is somebody running for election for the Board of Assessors. So once they have a full board, they will be coming up with timetables.
Okay, very good. Thank you much. Okay. So let's keep on moving. New business. So shall we talk a little bit about our FY24 budget estimated revenue? We got a new spreadsheet from Bradley today on some budget, but I think it's really just some new revenue figures. Is it? Or was it? Or what was it? Was it the school figures or not yet?
The only change that I'm aware of is on the expense side, because even though I haven't received the final application report for vocational schools, the preliminary showed there was, I believe it was 5 more students that had applied than were currently in the senior class. So I asked Bradley to update the vocational tuition to be level funded for fiscal year 24 from fiscal year 23, which was a $291,000 increase.
And that represents how many students? Do we know? Or
What's that?
do we know how many students that represents?
And I'm going by memory here because I don't want to quote anything again until I see the updated enrollment applications. But the preliminary there, my memory is that there were 17 applicants to go into the freshman class, where there were 12 Southampton seniors leaving.
So that's no different than we had the last time, and the deadline was April 1st. We have to have those numbers.
Yeah, so the school, I know you said you were reaching out to the superintendent to find out more information because our main person is on leave or something, is that right?
Correct.
So...
I told them I need that information ASAP.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then I think the other question related to that, just in terms of the revenue, was on the E&D from the school as well?
Yes, and they do have excess E&D, and fortunately, John keeps track of that, and originally, we've never gotten any formal, shall we say, proposal from the regional school department on this of what their intentions were. I did send them an email asking if the district treasurer could be here on Thursday to address if they were going to withhold that and under what Mass General laws that might fall to. I did get a response today from the superintendent that said that really wasn't the district treasurer's issue to or decision to withhold that, so there's no need for him to be there on Thursday. And she had reached out and said that they thought they were going to credit the different towns in the fourth quarter of the assessments. Now, I will say I took that as meaning the fourth quarter of 2024 and not the fourth quarter of 2023. And my response to that, contrary to my usual pushback to try to get to the middle, I probably should have said, well, how about crediting them in the first quarter? But I just asked, well, how about just crediting them equally over the four quarters of 2024? So,
And there's no way that it could possibly be fourth quarter of '23? I mean,
we don't want it in the first.
So
we want to use it.
Right, that's true, that's true.
Towards the 24 budget. I mean, theoretically, even if they credited us in the fourth quarter, which is going to be approximately $300,000,
Yeah.
the numbers are going to come out the same. However, I'm one of those ones that my master's degree is in finance, so I'm a cash flow person, and we're better off having that money equally dispersed throughout the fourth quarters rather than waiting to the fourth quarter.
So is the 300,000 in total, or is that our share?
So just a little, for the other committee members, because I only shared this with the chair and with the town administrator, and then the town administrator, ran with it, but a little background. So E&D for the Hampshire Regional, any regional school district is covered under a specific section of Mass General Law, and DESNY reinforces it. And in a nutshell, a regional school system can retain up to 5% annually of their E&D. So in theory, their budget is could be 105%. And historically, Hampshire Regional has had E&D, but never to the extent that it's exceeded the 5%. So they keep it every year. And as we found out earlier this month, that is currently sitting at $2.4 million in surplus funds of E&D up at Hampshire Regional. This certification came in at $1.3 million, which is far in excess of the 5%. So everything above 5% needs to come back down in the form of the assessment. And the law is pretty clear, and I know they've argued that they've tried to file an appeal. The law is silent on it. The law uses the word shall. It doesn't say may. The law orders the district treasurer. A district treasurer of a regional school system has very few responsibilities, but one of them is within 30 days of the assessment being voted by Hampshire Regional, the district treasurer is required to certify the assessment and send it down to the individual towns. Regardless of when that vote happens at the regional, it's 30 days from the vote or April 30th, whatever comes first. And that hasn't happened and probably wasn't going to happen because for all the right intentions, there was school committee members who had the best intentions in mind that felt that they should retain that money and create a capital campaign to pay for the roof that is going to be needed in 2 years. And we went back and forth in emails, and everyone's involved with it. Our number of what's coming back to us using this year's assessment number, the 23 assessment number, is just over $342,000. So failure of the district treasurer to certify that, the only recourse we have is to reject, at the select board level, is to reject their budget and vote a new budget that gives us that credit. So either way, the $5.6 million that they've asked for, we should, and we don't do it tonight, but I would suggest by Thursday, if we don't have closure on this, that we take an affirmative vote and communicate that up to Hampshire Regional, which I think the other 4 towns will then simultaneously do it, because it's the only way. They can't cut us a check. They have to give us the credit on it, and they're saying their credit's going to apply to the end, but what we need to do is get that certification, that vote from this district treasurer who makes $5,000 a year and has 3 responsibilities to do annually. And for them to say that the district treasurer doesn't have to appear before this body, to me, is ludicrous, but that's a separate conversation. we just take the vote and we reduce Hampshire Regional's number.
I'm happy to do that, but I'm not sure why we do have to do it. I mean, there are clear rules around the 5% above the budget, and they exceeded the 5%. And so why does it put us in the position of voting against their budget?
It's a failure of the district treasurer to certify the assessment. The only
Right.
recourse of the town is to reject the budget.
Okay,
and
so
change
who's the
number.
supervisor of the treasurer?
He's elected and appointed by the school committee.
So at this point, I think, Ed, you've reached out to the
Or appointed, he's
superintendent,
appointed.
and she's the one who's saying that she, from what I understood, she had asked that it be held back until she had time to check out something. Was that the idea?
Well, I mean, today's response was that the thought process would be that they would credit it, but credit it in the fourth quarter.
In the fourth quarter?
Right.
Okay. Okay, so that's what you've reacted to. So,
Would you, I'm sorry, would
Yeah,
you
no, go
interpret that, Ed, that the credit we would reduce the ask at town meeting in our budget because we're taking into consideration that credit? Or appropriate the full amount, get the credit, and then have that fall out to free cash in 2025?
No, I would say utilize the credit against the assessment.
Which would reduce the ask in the budget.
Right, exactly.
Which we need to vote on Thursday.
Thursday. So, yeah, so we need answers on these couple things for sure by our Thursday meeting, our budget hearing. Okay, as long as everybody's clear on that. Yeah.
And to be fair, I mean, I like the idea, since they have the money already, not this new money.
Yeah.
The existing money they've built up.
Sure, sure.
Of creating a capitalization,
Yeah.
putting that money to work. I'm all for it, but we need the money, I believe. Yes. The need is over on the ambulance service, which is for wages, and wages can't be bonded, but a roof can be bonded for 20 years at 3% interest.
Yep, yep, yep. Okay. Well, let us hope that we get these answers by Thursday, or we may be forced to take some other action that we would not normally want to take.
And you mentioned 2.4 million. There's nothing stopping them from creating these stabilization funds with their E&D, right?
Correct. Yep.
The current E&D is 1.3 though, right? It wasn't, not the
No, that's what got certified. They already have a built-up reserve.
Oh, they already have
too.
the reserve, right, okay.
So even, they can do both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. How about other things on the budget? What else do we want to focus on this evening? I mean, I think Thursday is going to be sharpen your pencils and prepare to spend a good, long evening, because we have to get this nailed down.
Other than the VOC tuition, is there anything else that is up in the air in revenue?
Well, that wouldn't be on the revenue side. Revenue sides, we've pretty much pushed to the max. Bradley sent out the new indirect cost figures to both Randall for the Transfer Station Enterprise Fund, and Randall plugged those into his calculations for the Transfer Station Enterprise Fund article. That went up a little bit. And Bradley also sent out the new figure that was calculated for the water department indirect costs, and he sent that along to Tom Gahn. That one went up fairly considerably. I think it was about $30,000 to $35,000. So we're waiting to get that new piece back from the water department for that enterprise article. But
Because it says here on the estimated revenue date 4/7/23, I don't know, this isn't the most recent one then, right?
Bradley sent one this afternoon, I think.
A revenue one?
All he told me was that he just straight lined, he
Yeah,
put the.
5%.
yeah,
Both of those are
4.7,
5%.
I believe, already had the indirect costs adjusted in it.
Yeah.
But they're enterprise anyway, so.
Yeah, right. Yeah, all that Bradley did today, I think, was, he just said that the vocational tuition has been updated to match FY '23.
Right.
So that's all he
Correct.
did, because I had asked him when he sent it out, so it's dated 4/11, today's email from Bradley.
Right, I got that.
And I asked him what was different, and all he said was vocational tuition has been updated to match FY '23. So there's really, that's the only change that,
From 4.7,
from
correct.
4/7, was just that, so.
Well, that's a difference of, you said, almost $300,000. If we can get firm numbers by Thursday, that would be ideal.
Yeah. And remind me on the I guess if it was on the 4-7 one, I'm remembering that we were talking about what we wanted to do for either a COLA or trying to follow our internal scale, if you will, wage scale that we had worked on creating last year. And I think we were all leaning toward following the wage scale. Is that right? So we definitely will have that. If it's not already in here, it'll be.
It's not in there on the individual budget yet.
Yeah.
I believe it's in there at the end of the total column.
Okay. Well, let's be sure that we have that.
I think it was 40-something thousand.
Correct.
Yeah, maybe. I was thinking closer to 30, but okay.
No, let me see.
Yeah, anyway, well,
Yeah,
let's just
I'd
be
have
sure
to
that
go
we
back and
don't lose sight of that for Thursday, okay? Because I think we were all pretty much committed to doing that rather than just a 2% COLA, quote unquote, okay? All right, any more on the budget for tonight? Can we keep on moving? Any other questions on budget for now? And otherwise, we'll look for maybe something new maybe from you guys, hopefully by tomorrow night, so we have a chance to look at it before Thursday's meeting. And let's be sure, I don't know if it'll be a joint meeting, but let's be sure, well, gosh, it's going to be too late if they haven't done it, right? Did Finance post a meeting?
Finance is meeting Wednesday night.
But did they didn't post a meeting for Thursday probably, did they? I didn't check.
I don't know.
So let's be sure they're invited anyway, because I know our whole budget process is upside down and backwards this year, guys. Now I can't even get into my.
Spectrum's having outage things on the internet right now.
Okay.
That's why you can't get-
I was going to say things are down. Okay, well, for anybody who's out there especially, but let's be sure, I know FinCom's got their general email, but let's be sure that members, so Becky, Donna, Vicky, get their individual email to be sure that they know that there is a meeting on Thursday, and try to join us so that we can hash this out together a little bit, because they usually have some very good questions and see things from a different perspective than we might. So we would really value their input and opinion. Okay? All right, let's keep on moving then. Next on the agenda, Fire Chief Search Committee. Search Committee charge, actually, but go ahead. John, you were in the lead here?
I have an update here. I
Yeah.
don't have a charge of the committee, but
Right.
let's just take a 90-second walk down memory lane here. So we're at the position where the chief has given notice that he's retiring on what is now June 29th, will be his last day with service to the town as the capacity of the fire chief. The committee took that up, formed what I'm calling a search or screening committee. Initially said we're going to have 5 people on it, one person from the select board, and the select board asked me to do it, or I volunteered for it. At the department head meeting, the question was raised and asked for a department head person to come forward. Chief Illings was absent, and all the other department heads appointed him. The other thing is we needed a non-Southampton Fire Command individual. Both Chief Illingsworth and I have working relationships with retired now Chief John Pond of the Hoyoke Fire Department. We met with him on March 1st, and that left 2 seats, which at least one to be a resident of the community, if not the other one, but the other one could be like an at-large position. Having lunch with Chief Pond, we talked about here's where we are, where we're going, and is this, just basically had a free-flow conversation. And we kind of mapped out, okay, here's what we think the options are. Just leave everything the way it is, go out and find another fire chief, bring that person in and have them take over. Do we utilize this as an opportunity to pause, assess, and determine what the future looks like for the department collectively or broken into 2 groups, fire and ambulance separately? Do we thinking with cost efficiency, of which Chief Illingsworth and I are both on, do we look to see if there's any possibility to regionalize, i.e. the ambulance service with maybe one of the abutting municipalities and just focus on the fire department? If that was the case, if we did that, would we need a full-time fire chief for an on-call fire department if their sole responsibility was fire The consensus was probably not for a town of our population. Do we go solicit bids for a for-profit third-party ambulance service to come in? Again, if we did that, do we necessarily need a full-time fire chief like we have right now? If we do keep ambulance in-house, Fire Chief John Pond was adamant that going forward it's going to be difficult just because of the age of that group to find somebody who has a paramedic certification and is trained and ready to be a fire chief. That's a very unique skill set that drives a premium cost that generally the bigger cities are paying for. So he just cautioned us on that. So we lean to, okay, I like the idea of reevaluating, reassessing what are our options. Chief Pond is very active in assessments, where Chief Workman had suggested we do that. And the assessments work for when you get a pool of candidates, you run them through the assessments and you have X fire chiefs come in and they run them through this whole scenario. Basically they're working an active structure call and all of a sudden the phone, they're throwing things at them to see how they operate under pressure. And at the end of it, all the former chiefs there score everybody and rank, and then you start with the highest score and work your way down through the interview process. We like that idea too, thinking that would be something the screening committee would do once we identify our pool. But we felt we hit a roadblock because we can't really get to the screening committee unless we know which way we're going on this, because the screening committee is really we know what we want, now to go out and identify the candidates and bring the top one or two to the select board. Well, I don't necessarily think the screening committee is the right group to go do the assessment and determine whether we should stay as we are, whether we should regionalize or not. All those questions is far beyond at least myself and Chief Illingsworth. Chief Pond could probably do it. Chief Pond agreed to stay on the screening committee when we got to that level, but would prefer not to be involved with the evaluation of the current department. He recommended Fire Chief Dave Morton, M-O-T-T-O-N, retired Fire Chief of Easthampton, who since his retirement has gone to Blandford for a year and a half and helped out that department to turn it around. In talking with, I mentioned all this in discussions with the chair. The chair approved me reaching out to Chief Morton to see if doing this evaluation, if he would be interested in that, what that would entail. Through that conversation, he stated that he's willing to help out if he can. He proposed that if you want the evaluation, that Russ Anderson, retired Fire Chief of Granby, who then, while he was at Granby, according to Chief Morton, Chief Anderson is one of the experts in the state of Massachusetts in EMS services. Chief Anderson reached the age of 65, which in the fire service is mandatory retirement. He cannot hold a position within the fire department at 65 and above by state law. But while he was in Granby, he went in and was brought in to handle in Chief Morton's words, a huge embezzlement of ambulance receipt funds. Cleaned all that up, identified the sources, took care of that, turned it around, turned that ambulance service to what it is now. Retired from there, and then was not at 65 yet. Was then hired by Southwick. Went into Southwick and turned them around from a version of ambulance service that we have now to they have some full-time ambulance service during peak hours when the volunteers aren't in the town. And I believe it's during the day. When everyone's at work, they staff the ambulance, and then it's like we have at night. It's, filling the shifts and all that. Then he reached his age. What Chief Morton suggested is a two-pronged approach, is that we asked Chief Anderson to come in. Keep in mind, he cannot come in fire capacity.
Fire capacity.
Just thinking out loud, and however this works, whether he comes in as a consultant under a 1099 or we bring him in as an employee, special assistant to the town administrator. But his goal would be to go in, and he's available now, to go in now with Chief Workman, evaluate the whole process, and help, and if he goes in now, work with Chief Workman to develop a written plan of what it should look like now and 5 years out. And them spitballing it was going back to when Mayor Tausnig was in Easthampton and how it used to be before Chief Hyde, or Hyde?
Yeah, Hyde.
So going that far back, we ran a basic ambulance, responded to the call. At the same time we responded to the call, Easthampton would send an ambulance with 2 paramedics on it. Paramedic would get out of the Easthampton truck, get in our truck. We're now charging for a paramedic response. We would drive to the hospital, we would bill, and we would pay Easthampton $500 for the benefit of that paramedic for 2 hours. At some point back then, unbeknownst to the town, we went 18 months without reimbursing the town of Easthampton. And they shut off that program. So Chief Morton suggested that that would be the way to go back to, because we're on that brink point. We're not quite that big to support the whole thing and that. And I don't know. But what I like the fact is, at least on paper, these individuals have credentials, and I haven't asked Chief Workman what his thoughts are, but assuming he confirms that they're of reputable sound and he agrees with them, that would work with them, go in. We leave Chief Morton on the back burner. In the event we do the evaluation, we get that. That tells the steering committee, okay, this is what you're looking for. Now we go out, look, and try and get it. And if we can't get the replacement in by June 30th, Chief Morton has agreed to step in for no more than 60 days as the acting fire chief, to be the placeholder and hold it over while the search committee and screening committee finishes its process.
So both of them both of them have limitations in terms of the amount of time they can work because they're in retirement, right? I mean,
Correct. So Chief Mortar is under 65.
Okay.
So he can still hold the position, but he is limited to
980 hours.
Yeah.
okay.
And he still collects, he works for the town or the city of Easthampton as a track coach or so. He coaches one of the athletic teams. So there's a little bit of money and hours over there as well. He felt very comfortably 30 to 60 days, no problem. Maybe I could stretch it to 90 days. He also didn't necessarily think he would have to be doing the 40-hour week, and we could spell that out. Maybe we make it 30 hours a week and an additional 10 hours in the event of an active fire call, or something to that effect, that we could work out.
Well.
But I don't know what the committee thinks.
Yeah. Lots to chew on there. Yeah.
First of all, thank you. That was a tremendous amount of communication, and I really feel up to speed. I really appreciate all the work that you've done. I think that I support doing an assessment. I think that we are, I think it'll be very instrumental, and I think it will point to decisions that should be made. I think it's exactly what we need. I just want to make sure there's no decrease in service. I think it's going to be disastrous if that happens. I think, as Chief Workman said, we have to have really good communication with the existing staff because there's a lot of uncertainty, like he said. And where does this all fall with the current budget and potential Prop 2.5 and all that? Those are my questions.
Yep. Okay. All right. Yeah.
So
Yep.
I don't know where it would fall with the Prop 2.5.
See where we tackle that on Thursday, hopefully.
Yeah, okay. But those are just my concerns.
I like the idea of, and again, if the committee is up to this, and I'll also say that this is probably, some of this is the first time town administrator's hearing it, so I'd be interested in his feedback. But I'm thinking the course of action might be to take a vote to enter into at least discussions with Chief Anderson on what that cost would be. And if he can start it this year, depending on what that number is, we'd have to find the funding source before we sign the contract. But I do like the idea of by May 1st, we potentially have 2 full months, assuming if Chief Workman doesn't take any vacation time.
Which I'm sure he will.
Which is reasonable, but...
Sure.
But if that happens by May 1st, that still gives 60 days of doing it while he's there, which I think is important
and
to have some overlap.
feedback and input.
Right. Would we want to have, I don't know whether it's possible, to have Chief Anderson come and meet us or do something via Zoom call, or just, how would we want to do this? I mean, do we want to just say, okay, let's reach out and see if he's available and have the town administrator and you perhaps be involved in negotiations with him, or how would you?
Or some kind of written proposal or something.
Yeah, something would have to come. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what would, I don't know if he would have his
Well, could we
CV
go
or-
and have a conversation with him, which then he would generate a proposal based on our,
Yeah,
Okay, that might
I'm
work.
happy with that.
That might work. Because I think the thing that, sticks in my mind from what Chief Workman said is that, he was recommending, obviously, that we have, if we can find one, a chief that's got that EMS background. I mean, I think he feels very strongly about that, and it may be, a hybrid, and something difficult to find, as you were alluding to there, but I would not want to not try to find that, I think. So to the fact that this person has got a lot of experience with EMS work, that right there sounds like a possibly good fit, to have somebody, and especially if they were available to come in for a short term and have an overlap, providing we could hear their proposal and find the funds to do that. Any thoughts on that? I mean, other thoughts?
I think that sounds like a good direction.
Yeah. Ed, did you have any
feedback,
thoughts on
Ed?
that? Yeah, I mean, you've worked in, obviously, many communities, so other thoughts and recommendations, where are we hitting?
I think that's fine. My, shall we say, biggest
Yep.
angst right now is, in my opinion, we at least need to have an interim fire EMS chief in place by July 1st.
Yeah.
So.
June 29th.
Or June 29th.
Yeah.
So my immediate thoughts are to get a job description for that interim, get a PRF out there so we can publicize that and move forward and get someone. That's my biggest angst right now. I think the other stuff that was brought up is great.
And tying the two together, with a PRF, the possible candidate from Easthampton could be an applicant for that, for the interim position, if he was available he was saying maybe 60 days, 90 days at the most. I mean, he could possibly be an applicant for that.
Well, it depends on what that PRF says.
Yeah.
From what John just said, if we were to word that, yeah, it was 40 hours a week required, then maybe that person wouldn't want it, so.
Yeah, so it depends on the wording, obviously, yeah.
You said
of
if we
PRF.
went down to 30,
Well,
did you mention 30?
when yes, in our conversation, he said 30 to 60 days at 40 hours a week, not an issue.
Okay.
Not an issue. If he's acting as a placeholder and not doing the evaluation,
Yeah.
he didn't necessarily believe it needed to be 40 hours because the interim isn't going to roll out any changes or initiatives. They're just going to hold it together.
So that would constitute 30 hours, which if there's a cap of what you said, 980 hours, that just buys us more time,
Right.
if need be.
And I think there's unknown, right? Because if you have a fire chief, whether it's 30 or 40 hours, and there's a call in the middle of the night, and it's a structure fire, we're going to expect them to respond.
Oh, yeah.
sure.
Right, so there's that unknown factor we have to
Right,
budget
yeah,
in.
but, yeah.
Okay, how do we put this into any kind of a motion here? Could somebody characterize that to allow, let's see if I can try one? Our first step, or go ahead, John. Yeah,
I'll make a motion to authorize the town administrator and myself to have a preliminary conversation with Chief Anderson about coming on board in some capacity to conduct an internal evaluation that results in a written report in conjunction, or, while Chief Workman is still in office, and to report back to the committee with hopefully a proposal once he understands the scope of work we're requesting. And then we can act on that. In addition, that we draft an interim fire chief's position to go through the PPP B process with the intent to have somebody in place on June 30th.
Okay, is that clear to everybody?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion on that? I mean, I think this is a real, it's a difficult time. I mean, we know that, the challenges of finding somebody of this caliber is is not going to be easy, but it's nice that we do have some retired fire personnel kind of in the general neighborhood, and if they are willing to help us out, I think that would be at least a good step forward while we actually do a real recruitment, later on.
Yeah.
But this would at least get the coverage we need and get the experience we need, and probably give us some new perspective on.
And I like the fact that we're going to be able to have Chief Workman's input into this before
Right.
he rides off into the sunset.
I would agree with that, yeah, absolutely.
But it also buys us some time to consider some of the alternatives that you raised that
Right.
might come out of this report.
Right, exactly.
So I think that's important, too.
Yep, okay. Any further discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second. Could I have a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. All right, thank you, John, for taking up that lead and presenting some creative options for us, and we will go forward. All right, next, we are on Select Board policies. And Ed, I think we have the free cash one, I think, is cleared already, is that right, or no?
Yeah, but I think we were still holding that, even though it has cleared, for a possible future amendment. And I might have it confused with something else.
I think the traffic control one was the one that we were waiting about. Remember, Chief Illingsworth had suggested something, and then you were going to look into the alternative traffic patterns. Was that the one?
That was one of them, but for some reason, I thought Chris had said something to me about the free cash one of.
Is it already posted?
It's been posted.
Oh, it's past the 10 days.
It's cleared its 10 days,
Yeah,
for sure.
so
We can always redo it. Motion to
Yeah.
approve free cash 8/30/2017 as amended, as it's cleared the 10-day waiting period.
I'll second that.
A second by Rini, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, yeah, well, we could go back and check on that. I don't recall it, Ed, offhand, but
they're all blending together in my
No.
brain right now.
I understand.
Not even 9 o'clock yet.
Hey, all right, the next one is, I think, let's see, so we have 3 that were open for discussion. So highway fee schedule, do we have some final numbers?
Randall is working on that, so I don't have the final numbers, but
Okay, and these are for the trench permits and the curb cut permits, et cetera, just to double
Yes.
check the fees, if those are sufficient to cover time and effort. So definitely for next Tuesday? If not, our next real meeting, our next select board meeting?
I think I really need one of you to follow me around for a
No,
day.
no, you said Randall was working on it.
He's working on it, I still will have to go over it with him,
Oh.
just to make sure that he's accounted for everything, so.
Okay. Okay, well, as soon as possible, he's
Yeah.
got it. Okay, the next 2.
Can I just ask, is this part of one of the existing policies?
It is. and
Which
it-
one?
So this is an attachment to the existing curb cut.
Curb cut,
and,
okay.
And permit in the public way, is it? Work in the public way?
Okay.
Something, yeah, so there's
They're
the,
currently $80.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it up here.
And I just want to make sure that the time that he puts into an average permit and his administrative assistant to review, approve, and get the
Right,
paperwork
yeah.
out is
Yeah.
that.
yeah. So I think
Doesn't
we
need to be
approved already the
changed.
curb cut policy, and then whichever way the other one was that I'm forgetting, that related to this, but this becomes the second page, the addendum to it, that is the actual permit fee. So we've got it half in and half out.
Okay.
All right, fuel efficiency, this is one that,
I think Joy.
no, I worked on this one.
Oh, okay.
This has taken a while, because I was trying to tie it in with our green communities. This is a real tricky one, just to be sure that we're in sync here. So this is, I think I had forwarded
You did forward some thoughts back to me.
some of the edits to Ed, but this is the cleaned up version. And essentially, the main thing, the language is pretty much the same, except for under the combined city and highway miles per gallon, that formula changed just a little bit. So I put in the new formula in terms of 55% city and 45% highway miles. Definitions, I believe, were all the same. The guidelines, what's new there is the vehicles at the very bottom part where all the bullets are. The vehicles are to have a combined city and highway miles per gallon no less than the following. So this is where it's listed, the two-wheel drive, 30 miles per gallon, four-wheel, 29, vans, pickup trucks, et cetera. This is new new miles per gallon per, I believe it's 2019 EPA standards, and a note that both hybrid and electric vehicles will meet those criteria. And then I guess the main thing is that EPA keeps a database on fuel efficiency, on vehicle fuel efficiency that's updated. And so anytime that we would be buying a new vehicle, we are required to basically check out their criteria to make sure that we are following whatever that guidance is for anything that might have changed on that. And let's see. So heavy-duty vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances, some public works trucks and buses are exempt from all of this criteria. Police cruisers, passenger vans, and cargo vans are exempt from it as fuel-efficient vehicles are not currently available. However, the town shall purchase fuel-efficient cruisers, passenger vans, and cargo vans when they become commercially available. And the note is also that police department and fire department administrative vehicles are not exempt, and they must meet the fuel efficiency requirements. Okay. There's an inventory that's supposed to be kept by the town administrator or his designee of all the vehicles that we have in the fleet. And I guess right now, if I'm understanding, every department has their own, right? I mean, fire, police, highway would keep their own. There's not one, is there one master?
There is one
master inventory?
Yes, because of the fact that we have a master inventory as long as the vehicle is on the road.
Okay.
From our insurance coverage.
Okay. Okay. So that's an inventory list, and it's apparently supposed to be provided to the Green Communities program when they request it. So it's not an annual requirement, but they do request it from time to time. And then probably the only other thing would be that we're supposed to develop a plan, if we don't have one already, to replace all non-exempt vehicles with fuel-efficient vehicles as defined, and supposed to help, set goals for when the fleet will be replaced. And then any non-exempt vehicles need to comply with the Green Communities criteria for guidance. And then probably one thing that I think hadn't been maybe clearer before was that last sentence under fuel-efficient vehicle replacement. Vehicles shall be replaced when they are no longer operable and will not be recycled from one municipal department to another unless the recycled replacement is more efficient than the vehicle it's replacing. So that's one thing where sometimes if it's a not a great vehicle for Department X, it just gets shifted over to another department. But this is much more specific, that unless it's better than what's currently there, it shouldn't just be swapped around between departments. So that's kind of the gist of it. So it's taken me a while to get through the EPA and Green Community stuff, but I think I've got it at least more up to date than it was. Let's put it that way.
Does it include any policy in there whereby if there's a vehicle that's being, quote, replaced, and a new vehicle comes in, but it's not really replaced, it's just used for other purposes, is there anything in that policy that makes it difficult to do that? Dissuades any department from doing that?
Yeah, we did that with the fire department, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, we replaced the vehicle.
I think there was, I went to town meeting with the suggestion that we would get a new vehicle, and the town approved the new vehicle. There was a presumption that it was going to be taken out of service, and it was still used, so therefore we were paying for license, we were paying for gas, insurance, and I think that since we're talking about fuel efficiency, I think that if we're intending on replacing a vehicle, then it should be sold for whatever and have a revenue source instead of draining on energy and expense.
Okay. I don't think I certainly don't have that level of specificity in here right now. Something I can do another quick double check.
No, because what you have in there, that particular instance would have averted because it's within the same department.
Right, yeah, exactly on that one.
And I'm not saying it's appropriate to have it there. I'm just wondering what we can do as a select board to have a policy that either it's very transparent when these situations happen or it's not allowed.
Okay, yeah, John?
Well, I was just going to say, where's the section that refers to the list, the inventory list?
The inventory list is on page 3, I think it is. So there's, in order to maintain practices.
Inventory, yep.
There is an inventory there. The actual sample policy that Green Communities or EPA, one or the other, put out gives sort of an overall spreadsheet that they would probably recommend we attach to the policy. I kind of stayed away from doing that, but maybe we can.
If we just modify that last sentence or add after the double period, because I like the whole thing, the town administrator or the designee is going to maintain a list, and as the town administrator said, they're doing that anyways as part of the insurance package, and just annually submit the list to the select board for review. And if we find a vehicle on there that's not supposed to be on there, we cancel it off, cancel the plates, and...
Okay.
And I have one other suggestion.
Hold that, stop, just let me get this. So the vehicle inventory list will be updated on an annual basis and presented to the select board and provided to the Green Communities program upon request or something like that.
I would say validated or certified by the select board on an annual basis.
Okay.
Here's the list of vehicles, yep, we take a vote, we accept it, and put it on, and then the Greens Communities can be upon request.
Sure, okay. All right, I'll rework that sentence a little bit. Thank you. Yeah, Ed? Sorry.
One other suggestion is probably on the capital request form, just adding another question that says, if requesting whether you say new vehicle or you might want to say a vehicle to replace one in your fleet.
Identify it.
Identify it, and what would be your preferred disposal method of the vehicle this would be replacing.
But that would not be in the policy per se, it would be on the capital form itself, you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, interesting idea, okay. All right, so I can make that small change on that one, if that's okay. So that's that. Any further thought on that?
Nope.
Could we make a motion to accept this with the change that I'm about to make and get to Ed?
I would make a motion to approve the fuel efficiency policy as amended and to go ahead and post it for the 10-day waiting period.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks. And then the last one we have here, last but not least, traffic control regulations.
Yes, so I updated and removed some of the language relative to handicap and made it appropriate for people with disabilities. And Ed sent to me and sent to us the inclusion of the school zone. So that was included, established school zone on whatever page it is here. The only question I had is that I did put in red highlight the fees that are included in this policy, and I didn't know what process is involved in reviewing them, if they need to be reviewed at all. But under enforcement, number 2B, it says violation assessment schedule. It's $50 per violation. Then there's another reference further on the, I guess, the second to last page, where it says parking for people with disabilities, a violation, section 4A, is a civil infraction with a penalty of $200 per violation. So, Ed, I don't know if they're supposed to be reviewed or if these are set fees that are part of...
These are fines, they aren't fees.
Yeah.
Okay, fines.
So, I mean, as long as everyone's of the mindset, and I would, ask the police chief, as long as everyone's of the mindset that the level that they are a deterrent and within Mass General laws, I would just leave them as is.
Well, Chief Illingworth did review this policy, one of the first things I sent to him, so...
So that's okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. And that's great. Thank you for changing that language to related to disabilities. And
thanks for all that
work.
And now my little addition very easy.
Yeah, the school zone part. Okay. And was there anything else? I mean, I think that was all we were waiting for. I think was the
because you had included what Ian wanted for the truck.
No.
Exclusion, no?
No, I didn't include that because he, I guess, wanted to exclude certain trucks from certain roads, and you were going to look into whether or not, if we're going to do that, we must indicate an alternative traffic pattern. So I didn't hear from either of you about that, so.
Go back and look at your language, but go ahead and move this up for the 10.
Okay,
if you
I'll
want,
make
for
a
the 10
motion
days.
to go ahead and move this for the 10-day posting of the traffic control regulations.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Francine, anything?
No.
No? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. All righty. Good. All right, next on our list. So we have by email, about a week or 10 days ago, the issue of the opioid settlements that we need to make a decision to sign on or not. The deadline, I believe, is coming momentito, and we need to get this decided upon. And just a reminder, we had signed on to an earlier settlement. This is a new set of settlements, if I'm understanding. So Ed, do you want to, I don't know if you want to just summarize what we got here, but let me just pull it up for 2 seconds here. I lost it.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion to go ahead. This is a settlement that involves 5 new companies, Triva, Allergen, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart. The previous 2 was 2 other
Johnson & Johnson.
Johnson & Johnson and one other company. So anyway, I'll make a motion that we sign on to this opioid settlement.
Okay. Could I have a second? All right. And how about any discussion about that? Did people have a chance to plow through it? It's a lengthy document.
Yeah. I do have a question. Somewhere in the document, and I don't know if this has been updated since, it said that you're not allowed to establish a separate fund. And we had talked about having this be one of the funds that, like a trust fund or something.
Stabilization fund.
Stabilization fund. And do you know if that's been changed or voted differently now?
I don't know. I'll have to go see if it has been changed, because I actually know a number of communities that are bringing forward at a town meeting article this year for the creation of the stabilization fund.
Okay, it was included in the documents that came along with it, the KP law, back and forth, an email.
Yeah.
It specifically said, did you see that, Francine?
Yeah, there was some place where they said it was restricted to general fund only.
General fund only.
And then they come back and reword it with this other stabilization. So I was a little confused as to where.
There was a sample article
money could be
that we had been
joined.
given as part of the package.
Yeah, it sent it along.
Yeah, this Sean somebody?
Right.
Yes.
Kind of Athol, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mark Reich of KP Law provided sample warrant language, and this one said to see if the town, so sample warrant language, to see if the town will vote pursuant to provisions of General Law 40, Chapter 45B, to create a new special purpose stabilization fund to be known as Opioid Settlement Stabilization Fund, blah, 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 blah. So this was a sample language that we got in mid-March. And it's, a whole paragraph here. I'm just reading the part, but it sounds like at least another town or 2 has done this. So where was it not clear?
It was in all the documents
In the
that came
document
with
part
this.
itself,
I have to go ahead back. I have to make a note of where it was. Hang on.
Where the
In
notion of the
this particular
general fund?
document, for whatever reason, I cannot flip. So give me a minute.
I marked
Mine
this
came out
off.
okay. Let's see if there's anything here. I mean, I guess what we could do would be just to double check. The sign-on period is the 18th, so we've definitely got to make a decision on this, but is it?
Here's a question, and this was frequently asked questions regarding the accounting of treatment of opioid funds. Can a municipality that anticipates receiving settlement funds from the recent opioid settlement set up a special revenue account to record them? So maybe that's different.
That is different. Special
Okay,
revenue
all right.
account is different.
Okay.
Yes.
The answer to that is no.
Okay.
And hang on.
Yeah, that was in that sideways thing here, right. Yeah, it looks like, well, no matter what, I think we were intending to probably put that on the warrant as an article, right? To set
Yes.
up a stabilization fund, so
Yes.
KP Law would have to pronounce themselves
Okay.
upon it anyway. But that wouldn't stop us from agreeing to sign on, right?
No, it would not.
Okay.
All right, I think I made a motion anyway.
Yes, I think Rini made a motion, and I think, did I hear John second it?
Yep, yes, you
All
did.
right. Okay, any further question or discussion?
Now, I just want to be clear, we're going to get $35,000 a year. Is that correct?
Let's find it. It was on,
It was on one of their,
yep.
looks like
It's one of these
PowerPoint.
things that's sideways here for some reason. I
Yeah.
agree.
Under municipal abatement funds.
Municipal abatement, okay, hang on. Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
I know, isn't it? Here, Chris,
Yeah.
I have a print copy
Yeah,
here.
so municipalities, right. I just lost it. It was right there.
Trying to read sideways.
Yeah, I know. Requires annual reporting to EOHHS by municipalities that receive
Annual payments.
annual pay. It doesn't say that we're going to get 35.
I thought we were. Okay. So the state is getting 500 million, of which 40% is going to be distributed
Right.
to municipalities.
That's what I think I understood, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, that's more of a reporting requirement. It's not that we would get
I
35,000.
see.
If you hit that limit, then yes, you have to do the
You have to
reporting.
do- if you
That's
get
how I
less, you get
interpret that.
less. Okay.
Okay, all right. Any further questions? All right, if not, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, unanimous, thank you. All right.
And that's due by the 18th, right? April 18th.
Right, so we actually need to sign this probably, I guess, on Thursday. Could we have it?
I think it's all electronic
Oh,
signature.
is it electronic? Oh, okay. Is it just one signature or the whole
I
board?
think it is just,
Was it the whole board? I forget.
I think
Trying to find the right
I
page
think
in
it's
here.
individual ones.
Okay,
yeah, they had samples here. Yeah, they
Okay.
only required one signature.
one signature? Okay, all right. Well, I'll work with Ed on that and we'll get ourselves involved on that one. Okay, next, we have, and I think this has been publicized somewhat, the naming rights public hearing is actually,
Thursday, the
Internet is
13th at 6
Yeah,
PM?
Thursday at 6 PM, correct. And the information is on the website. It's also on the Select Board page. And this is going to be, I think, not terribly lengthy. It's going to be two hearings, essentially. So for the Garska family to present the request to name the East Street Bridge after John Garska, and for members of the family and/or the Park Commission to put in the formal request to have a future playground at Liberty Field named after Mattie Schmidt. So we'll have probably about 15 minutes for each of the presentations. It shouldn't take, presentation and discussion, so it shouldn't take very long. And we'll start the meeting with that on Thursday.
I had reached, I think you had reached out also to one of the people, the Garska family, but Pat, who originally had contacted me, I reached out to. Do we know for sure whether or not Maddie's family is aware of this?
Yes, they are.
They are.
Yeah, I've been in communication.
Oh, good.
And her aunt, at least, is going to come.
Okay, good.
The Park Commission is actually having their meeting in the break room Thursday night.
Okay.
So some of them are going to wander down here at the same time.
Okay, good.
So that's all happening. So we're going to do that first thing before we get into budget things.
Okay, good.
All right, good. Next item is just the notion on the community forum and planning and logistics. I believe last week I had given you the CV of Debbie Linengale, if I can pronounce her name right, from Wendell as a possible facilitator for the meeting. Somebody who's got a lot of experience in doing community facilitation kinds of things, training, mediation. And we were trying to figure out some possible dates, and originally had thought maybe we could try to do it in April, but in reality, with everything going on, I think that's just not going to be realistic, and we kind of all agreed on that and asked that I reach out to her for another possible date in May. And so taking a look at things with the fact that we have town meeting on May 2nd, we have town elections on May 16th, and we'll be electing 2 new select board members. And that next meeting will probably be the 23rd, I'm guessing. May 23rd will be probably our next meeting. Is that right? Just checking on that. Second.
Are you having a meeting before the?
23rd sounds right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
A lot of them.
What?
every Tuesday and Thursday, as far as I can see, except for right now, April 25th,
Yeah.
but I'm sure it's going to get filled in.
The 9th and 23rd would be the
regular select board
regular select
meetings.
board meetings.
So with the elections on the 16th, we'd have new people on board the 23rd already, right?
Yes.
So I was, and then we fall into Memorial Day. So in order to catch anything in May, it would have to be like somewhere the 24th or the 25th of May, which would be the Wednesday or Thursday, right after new people joined us on the board. So that's a possibility. I don't know what anybody thinks about
I
that.
vote for the 24th,
24th? And that would be a Wednesday?
Wednesday night,
Wednesday night?
6 PM, Norris,
Yeah, and I think that's...
6 to 11.
Yeah, and that would be a question, and I think in terms of where, one of my, so 6 to 11, on the 24th, let me hear that, 24th, I'm going to write that down.
Yep.
6 o'clock, no, not 6 to 11, but anyway, 24th.
Do you still have to check to see if Norris is available?
Have not yet, since we didn't know
And I wonder about location. I mean, does
Yeah.
it make more sense to have it at the regional, in the auditorium?
Well, and because it's hard to know the level of participation. We definitely can't have it here. I think this is really certainly not possible.
Question.
Yeah, go
Either
ahead.
the COA, or is it even going to be bigger than that? And
Yeah, I mean, the COA can hold...
the school, but you don't also don't want to
7-0-ish.
get lost in the school. Yeah.
Based on the fire department, the capacity of COA is 75.
Right, at the most. And we had a pretty full meeting that night of the senior center
there were
thing.
70 people there.
That was
Yeah,
around
I was going
70
to say
people.
70 or 72.
But if
is
you
what
have
I
a lot of firefighters there, or if you have, I don't know, I just feel like, I hate to have to, we're talking about a fire capacity. I think that it would be a disaster if, well, more than 75 people showed up, and then you'd have to move the meeting.
Yeah, no.
So why not just try to book Norris anyway?
I think you should
We can
start
certainly
with a
see if
bigger
Norris is
place,
available.
yeah.
And I think the hard part with Norris in a way, it's so cavernous. It's just a big auditorium.
Yeah. I think we'd have to work on the speakers and the
Right,
microphones.
speakers and, logistics of that would have to probably be a little bit tighter than sometimes that we've had, just in terms of people being able to access multiple microphones without having to run all the way around.
Is there a divider in that room?
I don't know, in the cafeteria?
I don't think so.
No.
But, don't forget you were inviting the water department, the planning board, the fire, I don't think the senior center would.
Yeah.
I think it almost by default almost has to be at
Yeah.
Norris.
Yeah.
I think Hampshire Regional, it would reduce the likelihood that as many people would come, and it's really a Southampton issue.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's reach out to see if Norris could be available on the 24th at 6 PM. And then once we know that, I can work with this person. We've got to get back, and again, as we come through our budget process, I think on Thursday, we have to decide which of the proposals we want to.
Have we
choose.
identified a funding source? Yep.
I don't know that we've funded, other than the $500 in reserve funds, we've thought that there was some $500 left in reserve funds, but we would need to top that up.
So we haven't gotten that far yet?
Not that I know of, no. So we'd have to talk about that on Thursday as we do our budget meetings, I think, yeah. See if we can find that. And I think I would aim, personally, I would like us to think about that second option that is about the $1,200 or something dollars, just because a lot of the work is put on this person to develop the process rather than us.
And I agree with you. So for those watching at home tonight, I think our intent is to identify $1,200 to spend on the second option and to hold the event on May 24th, Wednesday, 6 PM at Norris, subject to everything being available and getting that. So, to really answer one of the earlier questions that came up.
Correct. No, that would be fine. And again, part of the purpose, as we said before, this would be, we're taking the event of the fire on Maple Street as a jumping off point. It's not intended to dissect everything that happened then. It's trying to look at what does it mean to live in a rural community where you've got such a spread out community and not a whole lot of roads, et cetera, that are easily accessible, and then people certainly beyond the hydrant zone. So trying to look at plans forward, what are our problems? How can we start tackling some of these things that we know we could probably improve on and do better than what we have in place? And so that's why it's going to be kind of an all hands on deck with fire, police, highway, water, planning as some of the key principal people that need to be there to give us their perspectives, because they're all involved one way or another in all of those activities.
Well, I think based on, tonight and what we continue to hear, I 100% support having this meeting be facilitated by someone experienced in that sort of mediation.
Okay. Good. All right. So we will check out the availabilities, and maybe we'll hear something even by Thursday, and we can bring that back so we can start the process. Okay? All right. Next, Green Community Grant proposals. Ed, I'll let you just tackle that a minute.
Sure, and I'm going to do it from memory. You've got them in your packets, and I kind of went through them. I was hoping to go over them in a little more detail last Friday with the representative from the company, but I've kind of ranked them by energy savings, and as far as by kilowatt hour, the town hall proposal has the most savings per kilowatt hour, followed by the library. John will correct me and say that Norris School then falls into play by kilowatt hour, and then after that, the police station. I will throw the caveat out there just to torture John, though, is that by far the bang for the buck is the least for the Norris School for those kilowatt hour savings. But
don't forget the street lighting, though.
Huh?
The street lighting has the biggest savings.
Except it's at the back end. If you remember when Eversource was here, and of course, don't forget that proposal does not have in it what the cost to buy out the Eversource lights are, which is, last time I checked, was like $30,000, and then we have to find someone to do it. I did reach out to Joe Mitchell, who was one of the ones who was here, asking about that program, and this is kind of the twist. It's over a 5-year period, but yes, they do have the program that they will start changing our LED street light, our
streetlights to LED.
Our halogen ones to LEDs, and do that as they can over the next 5 years. And all I would need is a letter from us asking us to enter into that program. That's why that one's kind of down the bottom, because I think that might be our best way to get into that at this point in time. And then that's followed up by the proposal, which is all HVAC, because the lighting in the highway garage was swapped out probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago to LEDs. But we have $138,595 from our Green Communities Award. If you take those first 4 projects, I think it comes to $143,000 and some change. So my suggestion, recommendation, and request of the select board would be to move forward with those first 4 projects, even though it's $5,000 roughly rounded off more than we have. I would put together an ARPA application for the $5,000 to cover the difference. And if the select board chooses to go that way, I would also recommend that you put into the motion that, because Eversource won't guarantee the rebates anymore, if we get rebates and we get enough rebates to not need that $5,000 of ARPA, that we take it from the rebates and basically, whether you call it refund or not, use the ARPA funds.
Yeah, okay. So at this point in time, I mean, you gave us all this printout, so I'm assuming we had put it on the agenda for Thursday. So you want to tackle this in more detail on Thursday, or do you
we can. I mean,
give people a chance, because this we just really got.
I mean, there's a lot of reading there.
Right.
I mean, that's my, shall we say, 1,000-foot synopsis, general direction. Direction.
So that would cover Town Hall, Library, Police, and Norris HVAC, right?
Yeah, and the Norris they had their lighting swapped out a few years back, and the rebates paid for the whole thing. So that proposal is just to actually update their HVAC, hydraulic, mechanical controls, which I know are very problematic for them.
And so then the outlier would be the highway garage HVAC. What could be done to help that situation?
We actually do have capital money to move forward with that. We could see what comes back in the rebates if we wanted to try to put that one up separately. That would, even if we had enough money, that one would take us over the $200,000 threshold where we can just award and not go out for, bids or quotes or other proposals. So, my thought is, at least on the surface, it appears that we will be utilizing, depending on what we get back from rebates, all that, those DOER grant funds. Like I say, if the rebates come back that we don't need the ARPA, fine. And if some of the rebates come back that we can use it to go towards to supplement or reduce those capital funds, let's do it.
Okay. And when or how would we know about the rebates? When do those happen?
Basically, when we file with DOER and get the projects approved, at that point in time, they would go forward to Eversource and they would lock in any and give us what is eligible for rebates.
I see. Okay.
That was my question. I just wanted to make sure you let people know how that worked. That this process was a lengthy one, so thank you.
Yeah.
But once these are submitted to the DOER, we're getting $138,000 worth of, quote, credit to do these things, and then we'll get additional credits potentially, which might be able to
And rebates
fill in the 5,000 gap or go towards additional projects.
Exactly.
Yep, that sounds good. Okay. Well, let's pick this up again on Thursday night and give us a chance to kind of read through the proposals a little bit, but I think we understand the strategy and the direction here. And so I just would like us to do our due diligence and read through the proposals, okay? All right. Next up, let's see, where are we on these things? Okay, we had a possible discussion about associate members for the PSBC. PSBC, and I think we had some clarification from legal about associate members?
Yes, so and I need some direction from the select board now. Is legal said that in general, the Attorney General doesn't approve of associate memberships counting towards quorums or in general voting unless under statute. So the question from town council was, would we like her to have an informal discussion with the AG's office to see in this particular case if they would be amendable to what was brought forward?
I think given the two positions that are currently available on the Public Safety Building Committee and the sort of, I don't know if, I think that I'd almost preferred that this new information go back to the committee.
Okay.
Because, before we have a discussion with the AG, to see if this committee would want that as opposed, because right now the committee, the recommendation was for having associate membership that can't vote except to fill in a quorum. And if that's not advised by the AG, then I would recommend that we bring it back to the Public Safety Building Committee before we do something on our own.
Yeah, because the associate members right now by statute would be Concom and anybody else? They would have associate members. Concom would have.
Oh, by statute.
By statute.
ZBA. Planning board could, and Concom.
Yeah, that's it, okay.
Those are the only ones I know of that are laid out by statute or rules and regulations.
Okay, all right. All right. Do we need suggestion as a motion, or is that okay as a suggestion? No, that's fine. Okay, so we'll have you bring that back.
Take it back.
Take it back to the committee and give them that new information and see what they think. Okay. Warrant articles. And do we have a list? Is there some new ones on here? We know we've seen a few of these before, and we'll have, probably next week, we'll have some of the actual language for the warrant articles, Ed? Is that what you're aiming for? Or?
Yes.
Okay. So I think we know that we've got obviously the budget override, the two enterprise funds, whatever we do for free cash and stabilization, operating and OPEB accounts, municipal light plant, establishing the opioid stabilization account, revolving fund limits as usual. CPC will have 3 articles: playground equipment, greenway design, and grant match for Manhan Meadows. The general bylaws is the recodification, as Francine was talking about. Probably zoning bylaws, zoning change.
And just to make you aware, I will need to have a conversation with Planning Board and Paul Deeman on those, because when I sent along the proposed article for the zoning bylaws, town council almost fainted because they're being just presented basically as a codification change. She has explained to me that these are usually controversial, and if you put them up that way, you may not get anything passed, which would mean doesn't even get recodified. She's got one community down in Eastern Mass that they originally brought some zoning changes to town meeting about 4 years ago in this manner, and they're still dealing with them. She says that usually what they'll do is they'll break it up into at least 2 articles, if not 3. One basic straightforward would maybe very minor changes to it, like the term Board of Selectmen is a select board, as the recodification and the renumbering. Bring forward another article which would be maybe the less controversial of any changes in any articles, and then a third article which may contain anything that might be fairly controversial.
Okay. When does Planning Board meet again? Are they meeting?
I am not sure.
Yeah, okay. Check that out, but yeah, well, yeah, okay. They might need a special meeting if this is, we need to.
However, town council was very impressed with what the general bylaw review committee had done.
Yay, Francine.
Yay. Finally.
Good, all right, glad to hear it. All right, very good. Okay, so we will have more detail on the various possible warrant articles. There's a zoning change request on College Highway. This is down at the Valley Road area. Is that the right one I'm thinking of?
Yes, you are.
Okay, and then the naming rights, after we do the hearing, hopefully that will pass, and that will be able to be on the warrant just for the town vote on the naming changes, and that gets us the bulk of what we'll be talking about, I guess. So, all right, let's see. Any other business that can't wait until the April 25th? Now, I guess I just had a question. April 25th is our next regular meeting. Let me get that right. If I get my calendar here, we are the 11th, so our next regular meeting would be the 25th. However, we are planning on meeting, obviously, Thursday the 13th, and we believe that we will need a meeting on the 18th and 20th to finalize budget and warrant articles so that we can get those done. So those will be focused on those 2 issues primarily. If there's a couple of PCFs or something, we can deal with that, I'm sure, that are not complicated. But we will not be having any other presentations that I'm aware of, to lead into the meetings, right? Okay, so we're going to plan on 18th and 20th as really focusing on budget and warrant articles, and our next regular full select board meeting with our typical agenda will be on the 25th of April. Okay.
And just so everybody knows, the Thursday the 20th, I will not be here.
Sorry, which day?
Thursday the 20th, I won't make that one.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. All right, let us see where we are here. Anything else on old business that we need to talk about? I don't know that we have any new updates on, I think on the voice over IP, we're just waiting on the auto attendant to get configured.
Everything else has been taken care of. The fax lines have been ported back. Those fax machines are working again. So yes, it's just the final pieces of putting together the auto attendant.
Right. Oh, and I will say, sorry, one thing I guess I will announce, and if I'd let you do a full town administrator report, we would have done this maybe, but the website is starting to really shape up and get ready to, not quite ready to roll out, but there's been a message out, you sent a message out to town departments, boards, commissions, committees, to have people name a person from their group that would be essentially become the admin, if you will, of their own page. So for Concom or Cemetery or Planning Board or whomever, that there would be somebody designated as the person who would be the updater of that particular page on the new website. And definitely, there were a couple people that already responded, so they might end up being in our first training group that Megan Gentile and Dan Breen will really run. And I will just say that Ed and I served as guinea pigs last week, and we were trainable, so that's a good that's a good sign. But there were very few. It's really not complicated. Once you do it a few times, I think it'll be very remote, very easy to do, to upload a link or add photos or just keep your pages updated. So we're really looking forward to that. And I'm thinking, we haven't really decided, but probably early to mid-May, we would aim for a rollout. So maybe mid-May after we get through all these other things. But we would try to do some training a little bit ahead of time, and we'd ask that everybody submit their name of that person to Ed by the 19th at the latest. Is that right?
And actually, we've gotten a good response so far.
Yeah, okay, good.
Chris,
so, yeah.
Just on that, knowing how sometimes we have turnovers, that there's still going to be somebody else out there, right, that has like super admin rights. It's not just going to be this one committee person.
Right now,
right
now it's within the tech committee that's managing it. Megan and Dan are part of the tech committee. They're the real gurus that have been.
No. I mean, once 2 years from now, this is up and running, and this person resigns from this committee. There's still going to be somebody else that's going to have super admin rights to get in.
Town administrator would certainly have that.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the goal, I think, is to try and let people, do their own updates and manage their own pages. So, yeah. But yes, there has to be some rules and regulations put in, as well as access.
What can you post and what you shouldn't post.
Those kinds of.
Right, exactly.
Those kinds of things. We've got to.
And there's no approval? They can just go post?
For their own page, we hadn't planned on, doing that. I mean, one would hope, people would put out relevant news and information and not, this is not intended to be a gossip column.
Well,
I mean, it's intended to be news.
Also just proofing. I mean.
Well, but
that too. I mean.
I think that's really up to them and their committee, personally.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think any of us have the time to do that. So if they want it, they can find a second person in their committee to double check what they've written, as far as I'm concerned. That's my personal opinion.
And then a committee messes up along the way.
They can change
their admin rights can get taken away.
Yeah, that too. That's a point. But anyway, okay. I don't know if there's anything else at this point in time. Anybody have anything? If not, we are going to go into a short executive session. And we will do this per MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 2, to discuss strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Town Administrator. Could I have a motion to...
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor?
Roden, aye.
Lumber aye.
Fowles, aye.
Fishman, aye.
Okay, we are adjourned at 9:20, whatever that is, 9:23, and we will not be coming back to regular session.
You just said about the